So greetings, everybody. We are doing Walk the Mock live. We will have probably 4 mock drafts going at various points tonight. So Rick, normally what we do at this time is on Walk the Mock, you have to kind of build your queue for the first round.
Right.
It doesn't say the draft is started, though. So I'm curious if everybody for this draft is locked out.
Maybe.
So
That might be the problem.
So I've already contacted support, but there's one other thing I wanted to try. And that's you can be a spectator. So, Greg, is it possible for you to find, like, is there a way? Here, I'll drop it into the chat. I think that's probably the easiest way. I'm curious.
I just loaded my Walk the Mock.
Right. And I'm curious if you can see the draft.
Okay. Yeah, let me just.
Yep. And while you guys are doing that, so Rick, I'll give you an idea kind of like as to how this UI is set up. So here's a draft that I started a long time ago. When I say a long time ago, I started it at 4:20 Eastern time. So we're 2.5 hours in, and you can see it announces the pick. So it took off my settings. So there are settings here so that it doesn't do that. I don't want the pick animation on. Okay, so I had to demo to my developers how the trading worked
Right.
in the middle of the draft. I accepted a bad trade.
Right.
But I was able to trade up. Darnell Wright went at pick 15, so I settled for Broderick Jones. But then I traded away my second round pick, and I traded down in the 3rd round in order to do that.
Right.
So that's what the first 4 rounds looks like.
Okay,
Right.
Jim. I just tried to log into that one.
Yeah.
And it's the same problem. Nothing's loading. There's a bug.
Good to know.
Yeah, there's a bug on that one. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll try to join one of the others. Let's see because there is another draft right now. But
there's always a draft.
Yep. So
Right.
So those are the 4 players, and then what I have, Rick, is this button right here. These are the next players it's going to take for me.
Right.
So I built a queue, right? Similar to doing a fantasy football draft, right? So I don't have to have the window up to do my pick. So meaning I can focus on joining the other one. And I'm still like 20 picks away from picking. So let's go see if we can join another one and see if the Bills are available. So Rick, who are your preferred first round picks for Buffalo?
For Buffalo, it comes down. I've got really a small group, to be honest with you. I've got Darnell Wright, would be a big choice of mine. There, Mozzie Smith from Michigan. I've also looked at. I strongly believe Trenton Simpson has been on the Bills' radar from last year. I read something after last year's draft when they were at Clemson's Pro Day, and he caught their eye then. So I've got Trenton Simpson still on my wish list, and I've got to throw a receiver in there. I like Josh Downs.
Okay, so here's what we'll do. So I just joined this one, and I will add those to the queue. So you said you liked Simpson, you liked Mozzie, you said Darnell Wright.
Correct. And again, I like to be realistic with the guys I'm looking at that I think are going to be available at 27 or even a couple of picks back if they move
So
back.
is there anybody that you would want if they drop?
Yeah. Nolan Smith would be a huge get as far as I'm concerned. And Broderick Jones, if one of those two guys would be on my hit list if for some reason there was chaos and they dropped. One of them dropped.
Okay.
Well, if the board went a certain way, Rick, and the edge from Georgia is there, I would be breaking your heart one pick ahead of you.
you would take him for Dallas.
Oh, if Bijan goes, especially if he goes to that city of non-brotherly love, as the rumors have it.
Don't fall for that.
Or even Washington. Oh, no, I know this is lying season. I know it's lying season.
I've got in all the mocks that I've done about 300 of them myself, and probably 200 of them I've got Bijan going to Dallas. I just don't see any way Dallas won't have a crack at him. If that's who they want, I think they're going to get a crack at him.
Yeah, but if you go with what you're hearing now in this last 10 days, there's a team in the top 10 down south who are very, very interested in him, the Falcons. And even though it goes against the grain of Howie Roseman, there sure is a lot of talk that they would take Bijan for Philly. And it's just like,
wow. Yeah, I don't see him getting by Dallas at 26.
Oh, no, not a chance.
If Dallas traded out of their pick because they got the right trade down offer, whoever traded up is probably not trading up for Bijan.
Exactly.
Right.
I'll give you an example, Jim, of what I just did yesterday, which to me would be the most ideal draft that the Cowboys could have. The most ideal draft possible, and it is a trade down, actually two of them, first and second round. And this is what I ended up with. I didn't get Bijan because he's been flying out of them early. Okay, so I traded back with the Chiefs to get the last pick of the first round. I still went with Jameer. Right? But then I went down 2 spots with Cincinnati in the second round. I got Laporta at tight end. Then the third round guy, Corey Trice, corner out of Purdue. Pick 95 that I just picked up in those 2 deals. Corey Trice, and then A.T. Perry, the wide receiver out of Wake.
I love him, by the way.
Yep.
I
picked up the in our normal 4th round pick, I got City Sal, the Eastern Michigan guard. I got my Coastal Carolina guy, Gerard Clark at 131. At 169, I got my McClendon Curtis. 212, Clayton Tune, quarterback Houston. And Jonah Tavai at 244, another defensive interior player, because Dallas sucks at depth there.
So let's go to this one for a minute, right? So I had Payne Durham, right? He was a 30 visit for Buffalo. And he was like the last Buffalo tight end on the board, right? So because I screwed up earlier in the draft, like tight ends, the computer took a whole bunch of tight ends before I took Morris. And like in the simulator, I've never seen it reach because Schoonmaker on the board would be further down. But I think the computer has learned who I pick.
Yep.
Right. But anyways, so Schoonmaker, Kuntz were off the board here. And then, I mean, this is the right spot. Durham going in the 6th round that's good value, right? But I have no tight ends here, right? There's like no tight ends left on the board.
Who is
like
on yes, there is.
What about Davis from Clemson?
He's gone. He's gone off that
board.
board.
Would make Buffalo's roster.
Davis Allen? Davis Allen would. Yeah, he's gone. Off that board, he's gone. But go back to the very top of that board, Jim. for tight ends.
Yeah, so I know that you like Whitehurst, right?
Nope. Go back up to the top.
I am.
No, you're not quite at the top.
Oh, I'm at the top.
Are you? For tight ends?
This is what's left. Yes.
Oh, okay. But Cameron Latu's name was still there.
Is it?
He was at the top before, just before.
Oh, it's because somebody took him.
Okay. See, there was a tight end left.
Got it. Okay. I see where you're going. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So he must
at this point, I'm probably skipping tight end, even though Buffalo needs a tight end too. I screwed this draft up.
No, you didn't. You didn't, because you have to remember that a board is not going to fall the way that we all think it does, right?
Absolutely.
Correct.
And there are positions that you will not be able to get because of your slot, where you're slotted. You're going to get screwed sometimes out of a position.
Yep.
Now, if you did want to take a chance on anybody in that tight end list, Noah Gindorf, South Dakota.
Yep. So he'll be at the bottom. So he'll be probably that last pick.
Yeah.
So just
So
pointing
you're
that
still
out.
not
So,
you're still not shut out of tight ends.
but I don't think that tight end would make Buffalo's roster. With what we
What
have
round is this? What
already
round
under
is-
contract,
But what round is this?
it doesn't matter what round. The player isn't like we talk about in this round for Buffalo.
Yeah.
The player has to be rosterable.
That's why I'm asking you, what round are you in your draft right now?
Yeah, because that matters, because Buffalo wants to upgrade at tight end. They love Knox. They're okay. There's no question there. That's not, but they want two tight ends. Listen, that Morris, made some plays when he had to, but that's not acceptable to them. They want something more. But I agree with Jim. If it's a 6th or 7th round, one of the two last tight ends left, they're going to have a hard time beating out Morris.
Right.
But if it's one of the, because I think there is talent in the middle rounds at tight end, if it's one of maybe 4 other guys, they're going to beat Morris out.
So,
they're going to have every
Durham,
opportunity to.
So Durham at minimum would be tight end 3 on Buffalo.
Yes.
That's his floor is tight end 3, but there's a really good chance coming out of camp he would be tight end 2.
Possibly, yes.
Right. But those 6th round guys, if they were tight end 3, I don't think they make the 53.
You just
Right, that's what I mean. Like we would use that.
But here's the other side.
for a
Yeah, but
different
here's
player.
the other side of that.
linebacker, keep another defensive line.
Here's the other side of that, though, Jim. You're on day 3. And day 3, you're not looking at the 2023 season.
Right.
Get 2023 gone out of the brain. It goes away after you're looking your first 3 rounds. You're looking for contributors for 2023. As soon as you hit day 3, you're looking at a possible, and then in 6 and 7, you're looking at guys down the line. Noah Gindorf could be taken and put on the practice squad. You could lock him away as an IR, whatever the case may be. And every team does this. They will hide guys. Get them developed in the system.
So Buffalo has lost too many players off the practice squad that we drafted.
Yep.
Like more than most NFL teams.
Yep.
To the point where the draft philosophy is they need to make the team. It's not
Only
we're not
to a
drafting
certain
a
point,
practice
though.
squad guy.
Only
we won't draft for the practice squad.
Only to a certain point, Jim. Once you're past that 3rd round, you're not in that realm anymore. It goes away.
And this is where, again, so the discussion of this board. Okay, so we have a trade offer coming in. Let's look at the trade. I'm going to say no.
Yeah, no. That's a no.
But the discussion would be which positions on the board. It should not be about none of those tight ends are going to make the team, but what other players on the board.
Right. And that's what I was going to.
Because that's, when you get to this point now, Jim, you're looking at guys who can come in and contribute on special teams and sub packages rarely. You hope.
Buffalo will pass. Listen, if it's 6th or 7th round and they don't feel that player has a chance to contribute, and even looking ahead to 2024, they will go to another position. They won't
Yep,
pick. They
right,
won't
so
pick a
meaning that-
position just for the sake of picking.
So,
No,
for
and
example,
at that point, with Buffalo's philosophy, et cetera, it's just BPA, and it will be regardless of position.
Exactly.
You
Yes.
are regardless.
right, and the standard is, so for example here, right, edge would be able to make the team, but more than likely that player isn't good enough to make the team, right? So
More than likely, but again, it depends on what they see in that particular player, right? This is what I always talk about. Our version of a player and our boards differ from what an NFL team
Yep.
actually does. They differ.
100%.
They
and
see
shorter can almost be a tight end,
shorter could almost be.
almost. Right?
And I would put him out there. He would be a wide tight end for me.
So this one's 15 minutes and it hasn't advanced. Yep. It's disappointing.
Yeah.
I'm looking to see if their support team sent me a message. Not yet.
And it happens. See, and I'm having the same dispute with Cowboys fans because so many of them are so worried about the offensive line. There is not an offensive lineman worth going at 26 that will be there because they want left guard. They want left guard in the worst way possible.
Is that Osiris?
McGovern went to you guys. So, yeah, they're talking of Avila from TCU and Osiris Torrance, right?
You wouldn't take Avila in round one?
No, not at 26. I'm not. There's no way I'm going there. Next year? Oh, I'd go there in a heartbeat with the guys at offensive guard who are going to be there next year. But this isn't the year for it. And that's why I keep telling them, some years you cannot get your wish list.
Yep. So do we think that round one so far through pick 7 looks okay?
Young
That
Strauss.
looks expected.
Yeah, that's expected. Yeah, that's pretty expected.
So, Rick, who are you thinking of in round 2?
For me in round 2, I've got a plethora of a wish list, and obviously it depends what happens in round 1.
I'll add them to the queue so we can keep track of them. So, who are you thinking in round 2?
Round 2, this is where, and there's a lot at play. I think BJ Ojolari is tops on my wish list in round 2. If they haven't gone receiver, one of the wide receivers from Tennessee, I prefer Tillman. I know Hyatt, everybody likes the hype. I'm a Tillman guy there. I also like the edge from Northwestern. I can't say his name.
Adubawari.
Yeah, that just kind of butchers me. Or Keon White from Georgia Tech. Because I think you've got some flexibility there with that kid. I think he can play inside, he can play outside. And I'm focused on those two positions pretty much, depending on what happens.
Either wide receiver or edge.
Yeah.
So you had take BJ Ojolari.
Yeah.
I thought I already did.
Yeah, he's still sitting there.
He's got the minus sign.
He's got the minus sign. I couldn't see the minus sign. So those are the you've got Tillman, and what other wide receiver did
Hyatt.
you say? Did you say Hyatt?
Well, no, I was just bringing that up as a reference.
Okay.
Between the two Tennessee receivers, my preference would be Tillman.
Okay.
Okay.
Go one more time into the wide receivers, Jim. And nope, those top guys gone. past Tillman?
Give me a minute. Wow, their UI is getting a major hit here because I've got the wide receiver filter turned on and it's not reacting to my mouse click.
Okay. There's the guy. Just go back up. Tyler Scott, Cincinnati is somebody that I would look at in Buffalo in a heartbeat. If you think the people would be hyped up for Jalen Hyatt's speed, Tyler Scott is the speed with hands.
Yeah.
So my thing is that if I'm taking a Smurf receiver, it's not going to be on day 1 or 2.
Right.
But that's a good cue. My expectation is Tillman will be there, but these two guys are going to be off the board well before Buffalo picks. I would be shocked if either of them got past about 10 in the second round, just based upon doing walk the mocks before. So
yeah, it all depends. And again, see, now there's something that I've been talking about this whole process. The measurable mindset is out the window this year because there's way too many of them who don't fit the norm at every position you can think of. Whether it's our 166-pound corner, whether it's all these slot wide receivers, the Kalijah Kansis and all those other ones, the Skoronski who doesn't fit the mold to be a tackle because of his arms and all that jazz. This draft is just loaded with them. So the mindset of this guy has to be 6'2", 200 pounds to be my receiver, that's out the window this year. It's gone. It's sheer athleticism and their production at their schools.
Okay, so this draft is looking bad. I'm just going to say I'm not happy that I accepted. Like, I had a recruiter calling me at the same time I was podcasting for my developers to show them how trading worked.
Yeah.
As like the trade came in and I had to make a pick. So I ended up I traded away round 2, which I probably shouldn't have done. But I mean, I like any draft where Buffalo goes line with the first 3 picks is going to be a great draft.
Yeah. That's why I've got line and I've got lines scattered throughout all my wish lists for each round.
Yep. And then a couple wide receivers, and then the last 2, I'm nearly confident that Phelps and Greindorf will be there. So there will be a tight end in round 7. But realistically, Buffalo's probably not going to have that many picks in round 6 and 7. Right now, we only have 1 pick in round 6.
Right.
And unless you trade down, you're not going to have more. So.
Offer up that Josh Allen character you guys got. You'll get loads of picks for him.
Yeah.
Okay, so JSN at 12. Nolan Smith is off the board. Van Ness to the Eagles, I see a lot.
Yeah. Van Ness or Miles Murphy. You see a lot of both of those guys going to the Eagles.
I actually think the guy the Eagles are dying to get their hands on from a contact that I have in Philly. And they're hoping that he drops is Jalen Carter. They want Jalen Carter bad.
They're willing to trade up to get him. They are willing to trade up.
I actually think Philly is going to go offensive line with their first pick because they got Lane. Is it Lane Johnson?
Lane Johnson.
He's on a 1-year deal and almost retired. And Philly's not going to be picking in the top 10 anytime soon.
But
they also have left tackle.
You also have the same issues for the defensive line, and that's why so many people are taking edge or the DT Carter for them because they got the guys on their last legs over there. Cox and
Brandon Graham.
Because Philly's going to be able to get edge at either 30 or 61.
Yep.
Yep.
Right.
Is it the edge that they would be happy with? Who knows?
Right. And that I do agree with. But
yep.
I think the drop off in offensive line, the cliff at the talent pool is so high that getting Bergeron in round 2 or 3 is nowhere near the same as getting a Broderick Jones or a Paris Johnson at the top of the first round.
Yep.
That's a hockey player, Bergeron.
So it's funny that JSN went here. So is this the right? Yeah, because the Packers and Jets switched, and the Packers were picking higher, right?
Right.
Yeah. Do they have the round 2 stuff flipped? So they do. But ironically, when I was doing this like 5 hours after the trade, the order wasn't there. Okay, so Kincaid going that early is a surprise. Because the Jets need offensive line.
Yeah, they need they have a Swiss cheese offensive line. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to do them much good if they don't draft linemen.
They're not taking Kincaid.
So I was watching a podcast earlier today, and the guys at Bootleg Football loved the Jets 2022 draft. They thought the Jets had one of the 3 best 2022 drafts, and they were praising how they addressed the offensive line. And we're sitting here a year later, and we're saying the Jets have a lot of offensive line questions.
Right.
Well, no, they have one big question, which becomes the domino from there, and that's Mekhi Becton. It's the domino effect of not having Becton, which forces other guys to move, et cetera, et cetera. So, and people have short memories. Elijah Vera Tucker is still a New York Jet. He missed last year with an injury. But they do need tackle.
Yes, they do.
Because of the situation with Becton.
Yeah, Gonzalez to Washington feels normal. Washington is a team that needs offensive line, so the fact that they didn't pick one.
Yeah, but they also need corner in a big way.
Yeah, they do. And it's funny, that's in most of my mocks, that's who I had Washington taken was Gonzalez.
Gonzalez, Porter Jr. goes there a lot.
Yeah.
Deontay Banks goes there quite a bit now.
Okay. So that's my other one. Are we at 38 yet? Almost there. That one hasn't started. This is Rick's. Okay, so there's another one that's about to start.
I think he might go to.
It's nice that these are staggered about 30 minutes apart, because it takes about 30 minutes to do each of the picks. Okay.
Because they're probably
Okay, so for this one, because I think when Pete Nana comes in, he said he wanted to take Anton Harrison. So my goal for this one's going to be to take Mozzie Smith or Keanu Benton at 27, unless a player drops. So have both of you guys used the Draft Fanatics simulator?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know I have.
Okay. So like one of the things that I'm doing is I'm showing my developers this podcast. So what feedback do you have, positive and negative? Like what do you like about it and what needs to be improved?
For me with the Fanatics, the one thing I found a little awkward trying to do was trades.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
You see how quickly trades can be done here, right?
Yep.
You have the trade value chart, Jim?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It needs to be applied, right? It's got to be, because I had trades that fell within the chart. It didn't go.
Which chart are you using?
Oh, I'm using the NFL trade value chart. Which one do you guys have?
The one that I was using was the Jimmy Johnson one.
Okay.
Right.
So it's a little bit different. It's a little
Which
bit
is, yeah. So
yeah.
So in the middle rounds, they should be equal.
Yeah.
But at the top of the first round,
they're not equal.
Yeah, they're definitely not equal.
And the other thing that happens with all of these on PFF, you get away with it because they have the force to trade, right?
Yep.
You have to account for the quarterback trade in round one. The quarterback trade in round one, the value goes up, right? It's higher than the trade value chart. And if you do the math on a top 5 trade for a quarterback to move up to take a quarterback, it actually works out in value to the 24th pick of the first round. Okay. That's the number. That is the premium. That's the premium.
Okay. So trading was one of the 10 things I've already told them that we have to fix.
Yeah.
And a couple of other people have made some other suggestions for how to make trading better. Like have simulated teams trade with each other.
Yep.
Go up and get the quarterback. Right. Okay. So but Darnell Wright just went. We are 5 picks away from Buffalo.
5 picks. And who's in your queue still?
So Simpson's at the top. Who did you want at the top, Rick?
Out of the guys that I had given you, well, Wright's gone already, right?
Yeah,
correct.
He just went.
So yes.
Then my next guy is Simpson.
Okay, so Simpson will be the pick because it's computer picks except for the Giants.
So. Right.
Okay.
Is Mozzie still there?
Yeah,
he is.
Then I would take Mozzie because I thought you said Mozzie went. Maybe I'm.
Oh, okay. So you want Mozzie? Okay.
That.
Okay, so that means in this one, I'm taking a tight end because I'm going to be different. So what tight end do we want in round 1?
If you're the Bills?
Yeah.
Washington for me.
Yep. So I'm going to move Washington all the way up. So there's a small chance Dallas takes him.
Dallas doesn't want him.
If Dallas has the tight ends fall, we will stick with tradition and we will stick with Notre Dame and Michael Mayer. Because he gives both immediately, right? The pass game and the blocking. Darnell Washington, it's blocking, right? I mean, this guy's a beast. The athletic testing is just unreal.
Listen, and if you're Buffalo, and that's why I had tweeted a couple days ago, you hear chirping, and I've got a very good contact in the South. And somebody from the Bills staff said to one of the coaches at Georgia, we've got issues at right tackle. We wouldn't have as much stress on Spencer Brown if Washington was next to him. Yeah. And immediately I tweeted, I said, come hell or high water, if Washington is there now, it doesn't mean that's who I would pick, but I think Buffalo is salivating over getting Washington.
Well, the same,
because that's like having the.
But that's the other same argument that you can make in for the Cowboys, and that's why I have on occasion I've taken Washington.
Right.
It makes half of them irate. Well, he can't catch.
Yeah.
Well, no, he wasn't asked to. He wasn't asked to.
Right.
Right. Brett Powers. You don't know that he can't catch a football.
So this is interesting. Like Branch going before Buffalo, that doesn't happen often.
No.
Brian Branch?
Yeah, like as I've just observed mock behavior, but like just to give us an idea, Addison and Flowers are still on the board.
Because Brian Branch is actually in all the mock drafts all over the place. When you count Brian,
Rick Bijan is there.
Listen, Bijan could be there till
he's
the
not
second or third round for me.
The Bills will not take him.
No, and
Buffalo definitely will. Oh, hell yes.
I
don't see the Bills taking him.
I agree with I agree 100% with you, to be honest with you. I actually think they would prefer the other running back from Texas. And the simple fact it was brought up to me, and it was a good point about 3 weeks ago, was that who's taken less hits in their college career and who still has a ceiling. A comment was made to me that you might have already seen the best of Bijan, but Roshan Johnson might not have got close to his ceiling yet.
But you also have the fact that what has been the biggest criticism, you guys are letting Josh Allen run way too much, right? You're putting your quarterback at risk way too much, et cetera, et cetera. This would be an admission that Bean doesn't want to admit to, that everybody else in the world was right. You needed a running back.
I got you, but listen, those Bean's a different cat, and they do not cave into, and I've seen other front offices in other towns cave into a lot of pressure.
These computer didn't even put Bijan to Dallas.
Really?
They gave Michael Mayer.
That ain't happening.
Okay. So you said Mozzie over Simpson?
Yes, sir.
The guy who's picking for Dallas has never met Jerry Jones.
It's the computer. Yeah. It's the computer.
Well, the computer never met Jerry. Because I'm telling you, if Bijan does fall past the New York Giants, JJ's going to look at Will and Steven. Shut your mouths. Yes, I'm making the pick. This is 100%. My team still, and he will take them.
Yep.
I mean, in a heartbeat.
Yep.
Okay, so I need one more player in the queue just in case it misses. So, like last night, I went to bed and it ended up drafting a quarterback to Buffalo.
Right on. You need one. Did you see what Collinsworth did in his mock at PFF?
Yeah, didn't he put Hooker to the Chiefs?
To the Chiefs.
Yeah.
In round one.
That's absolutely the most foolish thing.
But he's doing it for mouse clicks.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right. So ultimately, it's all about mouse.
He's also proving what I give him is his real name, Chris Colonoscopy.
Yes.
Okay. So how far does Bijan fall with the computer?
Oh, he can't. He will not get past Philly. I don't think. The computer would give him to Philly. And I would just be beside myself at that point.
So to me, like in this situation, because I don't think Philly's going to go running back in round one. Like, but Philly fans convinced me of that.
Oh yeah, but this is computer, right? You're saying the computer's making the pick.
So I'm thinking the most logical landing space, if he's continuing to fall.
Go ahead and say it. Say what I'm thinking.
It's the Cardinals or the Rams.
Rams wouldn't touch that. They need more help all over the place than you could shake a stick at.
Well, I know they need help, but you don't. Like, they need a running back, right?
But with 40 guys in this draft class, right?
Oh, that's right. They only have 40 guys on their roster, right?
Yeah. Like they have a small roster right now.
Don't you at least have like 50.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta have 50 something for the regular season.
So they don't even have like enough. You need 10 more players just
They got a lot
They
of
got a lot of-
problems. They got no money.
Okay, so wait a second. So which one's Pete's? Or excuse me, Rick's. So this one. Okay, so this one's Rick's. Okay, and then that one's blank, so I'm going to move it over here. And this one's the same blank one, and I'm going to leave it over there. Okay, there we go. I was getting my tabs mixed up, and I apologize.
No worries.
So that one's going to finish. Okay.
So
Oh, wait,
one of
I
these,
started another one.
yeah, I thought you just started another one.
I did. So that was the one that I was looking for. I had when I restarted my computer, it opened so many tabs. No, it's not that one.
all the logos now. It's just like give me a logo.
So yeah, there's something there's something for you for next year, Jim. Your best player available board, and only best player available. Is the
What
fun?
do you mean?
Well, you have a board, right? Like even
Yeah.
at Fanatics, we're creating a board for every team at Fanatics, right?
Correct.
So everybody else ranks their players, one down to 500, 900, where how many ever guys they load into their system. You need your own personal board of best player available, and that means you don't care about position. It's just best player available.
So there is a board that's loaded, but then as soon as each team has a single draft done, you don't recognize the board anymore.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying for yourself, just for yourself, Jim.
So I might try to learn how to rank players so that I can, but there is Dean Kindig from Bill's fan base lets me use, at least this year, he let me use his.
Okay, cool. But if you have one of those, and then you go into this exercise and only take BPA regardless of position in every round, see what results you end up with.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's how I start my mocks when I start doing them in February.
Yep.
I just do them from best player available.
And only best player available.
Yeah.
You don't deviate from it.
Yes. No.
Yep.
And then I start to fine tune, and as I gather more information, through the course of the year, that I've made notes on. I change my opinion because sometimes I don't think how they have guys listed is accurate as the best player.
Yeah. So what's going to end up happening at Draft Fanatics is there's going to be a site mock draft, right? So because each team has its own boards, there's actually going to be like a way where if every team's BPA board is loaded and every team took the top player on their board at the time of the pick, that's going to be what's known as the site mock draft.
Yeah.
So it's all interactive.
Right.
Yeah.
So the site mock draft is there, and then like Greg comes in and does a mock for the Cowboys, and then because you've reseeded your board, the site mock would recalculate.
Yep.
Then Rick goes in, does a mock for Buffalo, and the site recalculates the entire site mock. So that's going to be implemented next year. We came really close to getting that done this year, but again, too buggy to show people.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's part of what we're going to do. Rick, what do you think about Draft Fanatics? Like, what would you change?
That the trade issue is kind of big for me, and sometimes, and I don't know why. I noticed that in certain areas of the round, all you get given to you is like one position. And I can't, I wouldn't know how that happens. But you're looking at your players and it's like, wait a minute, why are there like 5 offensive linemen here? And I know some of these guys aren't the best, shouldn't be on the best available list that I'm looking at. Some of these guys need to be farther down, but it kind of groups them together.
Yeah, it'll group them together, Rick, because of the way that the boards get built by everybody doing their own board for that team, right?
Yeah.
That pumps them up in rankings, and you can get a cluster that way. That can
So
happen.
so Rick, if everybody drafted an offensive lineman at that round, but nobody picked the same one,
Same guy.
Right.
All 4 of them moved up.
Yeah.
And that's why you see it. You should still be able to search for the players.
Oh, and and that's exactly what I end up doing. And I figured it had to do with certain way customers were using it.
Yeah.
So
Greg saw it early. I don't remember
Right.
how early, but Greg initially made a comment like your board is effed up.
Right.
Right. And then he realized why.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Okay, it was okay. Now I get why this is effed up, because you got some guys who were going into certain teams that were they were way off, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate part, is you will have those outlier guys who will pick somebody way random and pump that guy up all of a sudden. Well, that means you got to have other people come back in and fix that.
Yeah.
And that's why running that BPA option, the first, the 1-2 BPA, where it goes 5 times.
Yep.
That's why that's important.
Yep.
Because it lets you reset the team's board.
So there was a day that somebody traded Josh Allen to the Carolina Panthers, and then with the first pick, he had Buffalo select a punter.
Yeah.
Somebody did that, which
His first name was Jack and his last name was Ass.
And right, so and users are going to do that.
Yeah,
like somebody else had a kicker for the Vikings, and he was like the 20th player on their board. I think it was Moody. It was like the 20th player on the Vikings board. Yeah. Right, to make sure the Vikings. I got the picture right. The Vikings have to select a kicker with like one of the 4 picks that they had. I get it, right? So, like, when the way that gets fixed is that within 4 hours of me seeing how high the punter was on the board, I was able to do 2 or 3 first-round challenges. The punter was at least now down to a second-round grade, because I picked 15 players that Buffalo should pick ahead of the punter in the first round. So the punter moved down. Then I did a second-round challenge. And I think Pete Nana came in. He did a few mocks. And then the punter got dropped down to like player 100.
Yeah.
And once the punter was at player 100, he was never simulated to Buffalo anytime I went to another team.
Yeah.
Meaning that out of all the players on the board, right? So there's like a 300-player board. The top 100 were the ones that were being mocked to Buffalo. Right? So, that's just the way that the board fell. So, any other things you can think of for draft fanatics?
No.
Okay. Okay, so Rick, in your draft, Bijan went to the Texans. And right now, as of pick 7, all of your targets, which were Simpson, Ojulari, Edabor, Tillman, and Scott, are on the board. And I'm highly confident Tillman will still be there at the time of Buffalo's pick. With the way that this specific simulator works,
Right.
very rarely do I see Tillman go in round 2.
But he should go ahead of Hyatt.
Yeah, that's there. People fall for hype, and again, that's the general public. The evaluators, with a lot of these players, you see the true evaluation when they get picked. And
but there's the difference, though. The other difference is that Cedric Tillman was a 2022 superstar. 2021 superstar.
2021.
2 years of tape.
Yep.
Right? He was injured last year. He was coming back off of an injury. And by that point, they had moved Hyatt to be more of the focus of that offense. Does not mean Cedric Tillman isn't a better wide receiver in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, he just runs better routes. He's
a better receiver.
Yes, I just.
Yep.
But again, that's the difference between the average mock draft person and people who do their homework, right? Like that's the big difference. So
my expectation for the draft is that wide receivers are going to fall.
They are.
Like at one point early in mock draft season, there were people saying that 6 wide receivers are going in round 1.
Yeah, right.
And then people start like stacking the board saying, will we even have 3?
Right.
I think the over under is 3.5 wide receivers in round 1.
Yeah, and if I was a bet man, I'd actually take the under, because outside of and I've have questions about the kid from Ohio State, and I know everybody's got him penciled in as the first wide receiver. I don't think that kid is a guaranteed lock, and he may very well be the first wide receiver taken off the board. And then I think it's going to be a crapshoot who goes second, to be honest with you, because I don't think there's much that separates the next 3 guys.
So based on my reading, right, and keeping in mind, I'm not watching film, I'm reading other people's analysis of the film that they've consumed. JSN, to me, gives me the impression that he's coming in with a high floor, meaning that whatever team takes him is going to be able to use him immediately. But he's not going to be like, nobody's really saying that his potential is that he's going to be wide receiver 1, featured receiver of the offense.
Right.
Nope. He is a YR2.
Mm-hmm.
He's a YR2. Now, let's say a board falls really wonky. JSN, based upon his previous year's tape, because here's another guy who was hurt this last season. We didn't see JSN. It was Marvin Harrison Jr., who's going to be very high up next year. But the previous year, what you saw of JSN, if he had come out last year and all 3 Ohio State receivers were available, JSN would have been the first of the 3 gone over Olave and Wilson for so many people. Yeah. And this is where all of this becomes such a crapshoot, Jim. Like,
so this is the 7:30 draft, so I'm kind of stacking that board. My target's a Villa. But I would definitely take Downs and Flowers if they dropped. And I would definitely take those other 3 players if they dropped.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I would never. You couldn't give me enough money to target Avila at the first round. You just can't.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Early in February, I was focusing on him a great deal, him and Florence. And and I've kind of backed off of them by probably the beginning of March. It was later on. I'd take them. I'm not taking either one in the first round.
Nope. Their picks, they're pick 32 to 45.
Yeah, that's exactly where I have them going now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Rick, do you still want Simpson in round 2? Because he's probably going to be there.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Because my preference, I had named you guys. My thinking, in my thinking, because we all don't know how the board's going to go, and that's why I was kind of all over. I want my guy, a guy like Tillman. I expect him. I would like to get Tillman, to be honest with you, late second, third round. That's where I would like to see Tillman, but I threw him in for the second because, hey, maybe everybody loses their mind and they take more wide receivers than the three of us are talking about.
Do you want to trade down out of 28 here?
Yes.
Okay.
If we can.
No, granted, there's like 5 people picking here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's not going to be a lot of offers to come up.
Yeah, there's a lot of computer picks coming in there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's see what happened here. Dallas took Gibbs. Most of that looks so. Casey traded up to get Bijan in this one.
Oh my Lord, that would just be such a freaking nightmare.
Yeah, it would, and that
man.
And that's why I commented on that earlier, because there's a NFL guy that I follow on Twitter, and he was like, "Do not be shocked," and I know the rest of the AFC will hate it. Laying in the weeds to get Bijan is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. Look at that trade. No, I guess KC did have to come up like 10. That's like what, 8 spots, 9 spots.
9 spots, and they gave up the 31st and what?
They gave up a 3rd and a 6th.
That works on the value chart.
That's highly in Minnesota's favor.
Oh, sure it is, but it works.
Yep.
On the value chart, that does work. They gave a little bit more than what they should, but it's close enough. And KC has had a boatload of picks this year again.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they can afford to sweeten the deal.
Okay, so Bergeron to the Patriots. I've drafted against Smalls before. That's a unique pick for him. So he's changing it up too. So I've definitely drafted against him. I know who that is. At least by name on the app. I know who that is.
And say that, Jim, this is why I've said Gibbs. There's so much that fits. They were the 3rd slowest offense at skill positions last year in the league. Gibbs, 4.36 40. Tony Pollard is not a running back 1. He's not. He'll get killed if we try to use him the way that the Cowboys like to use their running back. So it fits so many different things. If Bijan is gone, take Gibbs.
Hey, Pete, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Wonderful.
We are joined here by Rick and Greg.
I'm just trying to get a picture of my favorite GM.
Are you trying to get a picture of Bean up there?
Oh no, it's not. It's not Bean. It's not a good favorite GM.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Oh, good Lord! Don't pick on me. Don't put JJ up there.
We'll see if I get my. Well, actually, it's kind of appropriate because he has a little bit to do with DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh, okay. I know who we're talking about.
Okay, so Pete, when we were messaging, you had mentioned I think you were targeting Anton Harrison in round 1.
Yeah, I'd love to get a right tackle. I don't know about if Bean is actually on board with that kind of thing, but
no worries.
Boy,
most of the time he's there. but I like exploring like different strategies, and the fact that you guys are telling me who to pick. Like a lot of these people I pick against, but you guys are going to be giving them different players than I've fed in. So we have, at this point, we have, okay, so that draft finished. This one I started at 4:00 and it just finished. And the draft itself isn't even over with. Okay, so I'll take that one off the screen. Okay, so we have, this one is this one's Rick's draft. He has selected Mozzie Smith, and this one began at 7 p.m.
So it's been an hour.
Yep. This one I'm doing, this is Darnell Washington at 27. That's at the beginning of the second round right now. And then you've got a draft that's kicking off in 1 second. So we can go through and we can talk through the different players. Greg's got his own board. I think both you and Rick each have your own boards. So I like talking about like who's high and who's low on different people's boards. And we can chat about that for as long as people can stay on and chat.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So the reason why I like Anton Harrison as a choice in Buffalo is outside of not doing that 3-cone, his testing would be something that Bean would be attracted to.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Greg, it's interesting too, because it seems like it's the year of not doing the agility drills for not just tackles, but running. I think Bijan didn't even do them. Everybody skipped the agility drills.
Bijan doesn't have to do anything. Bijan,
You think he
Jalen
moves
Carter,
okay?
Will Anderson Jr., those guys did not have to do anything.
Yeah, even ones that I would have wanted to see. I think as long as you take the testing with a grain of salt, it's okay to kind of enjoy the track meet.
Because as I always say, show me a football player that runs 40 yards in a straight line.
Exactly.
Something bad happened.
And without wearing pads and all that stuff.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I think that they would change it, but they have too much data to change it now because they really just care for the comparison.
Okay. So, Pete, have you seen Walk the Mock before?
Tell me about it. I don't know if I have.
So, I just added a bunch of players to the queue.
Okay.
And it's going to pick the top player in the queue.
Mm-hmm.
So, for this draft, make sure the players you like are at the top. I've got Harrison at the top, so that should be the Bills pick.
Got it.
Right. And what we have to do is we have to monitor the draft as it comes close. Right. So meaning like it's going to be a minute per pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we've got to wait 20 minutes to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
depending on how quickly there's the Seahawks pick already.
So I think the next one up is actually going to be Rick.
Yeah, it should be.
And Rick, you're targeting Simpson, right?
Yeah.
Because your queue is thin.
Yep.
You okay with Tillman in round 2?
Absolutely.
Okay. Who are you thinking in round 3, Rick?
Round 3 is where I've got some big boys, and Gervon Dexter from Florida. Love him there. I've got I'm just looking at my list. Warren McClendon, Noah Sewell, and if I didn't get a wide receiver, A.T. Perry from Wake Forest.
Who took Simpson in that one?
In this one?
Yeah.
No one.
No one?
No. I've got a filter on. That's why you don't see it.
Okay.
Okay, so Dexter, McClendon, and you're going to get Simpson, so I'm not adding Sewell.
Yeah, okay, go.
Okay, if we don't get Simpson, then we'll add Sewell. Okay.
Yep.
So What do you like about McClendon? Because I don't necessarily think I've seen him go day 2 very much.
McClendon, I like his power. His footwork needs help. All right. But his power when he's in his short area, I don't remember many guys getting past him. I don't remember many guys, and I watched every Georgia game. He seemed to move pretty fluid, like on game days. There wasn't a lot of hype on him. Everybody focused on Broderick, which I understand, as they should. But if you look at his numbers, and there were some games where he often faced the other team's big edge guys because they moved away from Broderick, and he would shut them down to little to no hype whatsoever. And
Okay.
I think he's a guy that's been overlooked because of teammates, that are also on the line.
So, Pete, where do you have McClendon?
McClendon, I think, is a good example of, like, he's a guy that might be a day 3 in other drafts, but there's a whole mix of guys that probably will move into that 3rd round or that 4th round range, because once you get past maybe the 8th tackle on the board, it really opens wide up. It's just kind of, what do you like? I mean, McClendon has nice length. He's got the big hands. He's got decent tape. I think that he's a guy that could go in the 3rd. Really, it just, if some team likes him, if some team was watching Jones and said, hey, McClendon's holding his own every time they move that edge rusher to the other side, that's exactly what it takes to get on a coach's good side.
Okay.
So here's the difference between the media-driven stuff, Jim, and evaluators. For somebody like myself, I can watch Broderick Jones in 2 games. I know who he is, what he's all about, blah, 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 blah. I won't focus on him anymore. Period.
Right.
I will focus, exactly what Rick just talked about, on the other guy. Now, McClendon is a perfect example for Georgia of the other guy. The other guy that fits that category to a T is opposite Anton Harrison in Oklahoma, Wanye Morris.
Yeah.
That's who an evaluator is going to watch. The other guy. Where does it apply the most, Jim? The tackles and the corners. The tackles and the corners are the 2 spots where somebody who evaluates like Pete will, like I will, we're watching the other guy. Why? Because he's the one getting tested.
Got it.
Okay?
If I see 3 games of the supposed stud, okay, and I've watched three games of him, and there's been no fluctuation, and I see the outstanding performance that you should, exactly like you just said, Greg, I'm done. Let me go down the line now from him and see who else I might be able to find. And that's how I arrived at McClendon. I saw
the
very little weakness.
The one time I will reverse myself on that is if that player is on a team who has a surprise loss. Okay, they've lost a game.
Yeah.
I always want to see how a player, especially who's considered to be top, handles a game where they're losing. I want to see how they play when they're down, right?
And that's one of the reasons why I am not sold on JSN, because, hey, listen, I'm not going to hide it. You guys know I'm a Michigan guy. He quit. He quit in that Michigan game, and there was some quit in him, and that's another reason why I'm down on Reed from Michigan State. In the two meetings with Michigan the past 2 years, Reed was getting physically manhandled in those games, and he gave up. I do not want to see that in college. If you're giving up on a Saturday, what are you going to do when the talent is better on a Sunday? And you can throw the stats, for whoever you want, but you watch his game against that team, and he wanted no parts by the 3rd quarter of what was happening in that game.
Yeah.
But that happens in football. It happens. It happens in the NFL.
So Rick,
Yep.
you're up in 15 seconds, and somebody took Simpson. So you're okay taking Tillman?
Yes.
Okay.
I had a feeling Simpson was going to go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some guys really like him. I'm okay with him. I got questions about Simpson, exactly usage-wise in the NFL, but athletically, I like him. But it's just, how are you actually going to use him? That's going to come down to, because lateral speed-wise, sideline to sideline, I love Simpson.
Yeah, the dude's lights out. The other thing that I liked about him, which in September got me hooked, and because it's something we lacked with Tremaine Edmonds. If you send Simpson on a blitz, Simpson's getting there. I sat in my seats and watched Tremaine Edmonds come on blitzes and get stood up by every running back that came up to meet him, and that was it. He'd stop. Simpson does not stop. Simpson is going to run you over and get to the quarterback.
But again, we're also talking about the ACC versus the NFL.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, but what I'm saying, the effort and the will to want to get there means a lot to me.
Oh yeah.
Simpson has some big plays on tape, some fun plays. Actually, one of the reps that got me into Simpson was, I think I was watching him play BC, and they tried to dump it off to the running back in the flats.
Yeah,
and he was there in a heartbeat, and
he was.
There was no catch. He just leveled the guy.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a great play. I like that kind of thing from a linebacker, especially coming from inside the box to make that play on the outside. That's range, and that's a good thing. I think that, there's some weaknesses in his game. I do prefer Campbell to him. I think when you get these flawed prospects, you kind of say to yourself, which flaw do you think is the easiest to coach out of somebody? And for me, Campbell just kind of has too active feet when he's in coverage. He's watching what he's supposed to be watching, but I just don't like it's kind of like when a route runner is inefficient. That's kind of what I see in Campbell's coverage.
Yeah.
Whereas Simpson, I think he's doing sometimes that get to a spot, but not really play the receivers. He does get stuck on things at times. But like you said, Rick, when he's downhill, he's just as good as Campbell, not having some advantages.
Well, the Clemson defensive guys, I'm throwing 2022 out compared to 2021, because when Venables was still there, that was a legit defense. What they were coming out with last year was so wonky at times that totally bizarre what they were doing at Clemson.
Yeah.
Hey Ben, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
That's Greg, that's a good point too, just about when you really are getting into watching things, watching the previous year and comparing is valuable a lot.
And beware of the 1 year wonder.
Absolutely. I won't. I do not like guys that's my big pet peeve is 1 year hit. I have to see more than that. I just have to, especially if you were on the team. It's
like the year Buffalo drafted Rousseau. That was the first time I believe that Bean drafted somebody that only had 1 year at
right. Tape. Yeah.
Right. In the first round.
Right.
Yep. So just a couple things. So Pete, in your draft, I observed Stroud fell all the way to 8. So Washington didn't take an offensive lineman here.
Interesting.
So that's one of the places.
They moved up to get him. Washington moved up to get him.
Thank you for that observation. They moved up one spot.
Then Washington's made 2 deals then, because Washington has the 16. That's the first round.
Okay. Yeah, they moved from 8 to 16.
Mm-hmm.
From 16 to 8.
Or from 16 to 8. Okay, thank you. 16 to 8. And then they moved from 8. So what did they give up? So they're giving up. Look at that. But they're giving up like all their picks next year.
Mhm.
Well, no, Washington was getting for 16 from Vegas. Or what? No,
Oh, I got it. So they took one of the picks that Vegas traded them.
there's
and
been
they
a lot of
took
moves.
$15.
This one has
Okay.
had a lot of moves
Okay.
because Vegas had 7, then they moved to 8.
Is that how you read that?
See, Tennessee and Vegas.
I got it now.
Yeah.
And then Okay, I got it.
So there's been a lot of moves in this one. There's
Yep,
been
yep, yep.
there's been a lot.
There's a lot of people in this one. Okay, so just to confirm, do you want Harrison over Wright, Pete?
Oh, definitely.
Got it. Okay, so we're good there.
And
So
yeah, and that again is just what flaws do you prefer? And I think that Harrison is just sometimes out of sync with his feet and his punch. And I think that Wright does a lot of waist bending and sometimes grabs. And they're both really good prospects. I just prefer Harrison, I guess.
cool. So Ben, I'll give you control of this draft right here. So we did Darnell Washington in the first, and Buffalo's picking in 4
We-
picks.
who?
Who would you want in round 2?
Who took Darnell in the first?
I did
The Bills.
For the Buffalo. Okay.
for Buffalo. Yeah. So
Okay.
so this one, the second round pick for Buffalo is coming up in
What did Pete say about that?
a.
Okay.
Taking right. I mean, as long
No.
as it's a right tackle, I'm going to be happy because I don't know that the Bills are totally. They're not as gung ho as I am about fixing right tackle.
No, but I meant
No, I took
about
Washington, not right.
Oh,
Take
Washington.
Darnell.
Oh,
They went with
is
the
he going to play right
they-
tackle?
They went with the 6th offensive lineman to help whoever is remaining at right tackle.
Yeah.
I do
I
like
think it's
that
too early
idea.
for what I think it's too early for Washington. Just to me, it's the route running. I don't like it. I love his hands, and the blocking is good. I think that he's a year or 2 project, and I wouldn't spend the 27th pick on it. What I think is a year or 2 project, but I mean the ceiling is there, and
Okay.
if you're comfortable with the movement skills because he's got the athleticism, I mean, there's certainly a lot there to like. There's literally a lot there to like.
Yeah, I think I really like him, although the last 24 hours he's come down on my board a little, but he, like you said, he's a 6 offensive lineman and he has a lot of upside as a receiver. He's just a little clunky. At least I'm expecting him to be a little Frankenstein-y the first year and then develop, but it all depends on how well
And don't put the route running that he was given at Georgia against him.
Right.
Because Bowers was everything there, right?
So Ben, who would you go in round 2 in this draft right here?
For the Bills,
Yeah.
what you're talking about me or what I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
the Bills should do?
Well, yeah. So I'll give you control of this one. And you tell me who you want me to put on the board.
Let's see. We got okay. So who are the tackles left, and who is the D lineman left, and who's the wide receiver left?
So Thule is there.
Cody Mock, Bergeron.
Bergeron's I've added him. Dexter is available. And we've got 2 minutes to make the decision.
Okay, but we're not up yet, are we?
We're up in 2
We got
minutes.
2 minutes.
In 2 minutes. Okay. So we got New York and Dallas.
Just
All right.
tell me the players, and I'll make sure they're in the queue.
Right now, Thule's in the running. Bergeron's in the running.
Ojulari is still on the board right now.
Yeah, what else you have for edge?
Ojulari dropping is surprising.
Yes.
He is the top ranked edge.
Now who's the top? No, this is who's ranking.
This site has pretty good rankings.
Okay, so who's the top overall? Ojulari?
Right now, Ojulari is the top player on the board.
at this point, if he's there, I think.
Do you like?
I
Do you
think
like,
it's.
do you like Ojulari, Ben, or do you like Harrison
gonna-
with Ohio State?
We have to
better?
make the decision in 55 seconds.
I'm gonna own up to my ignorance, as I haven't studied Ojulari that much, but I think we have to go D lineman, and we need edge.
That's why I was just asking, Ben. Do you like Harrison out of Ohio State better than Ojulari, or you haven't seen Ojulari enough?
I have to confess my ignorance.
So see, this is an interesting thing because there was actually some tweets about this today, and I saw this on a podcast, I think yesterday. So Ojulari, what I like, he's young, right? So I believe he's only 20 or 21.
20.
Right?
Yeah.
He's got bend to him, and he still has to grow. But to your point, Greg, Zach Harrison is very typical of the type of edge player Buffalo likes.
That's why I brought his name up. That's why I brought his name up.
So I would love to have a bendy edge. I'm actually shocked that he dropped that far. Like that only happens like on these with 32 people picking. This is the first time in like 30 times that I've seen Ojulari get to 28. So
I think that Ojulari is a name that popped up in the last couple of weeks, so probably a lot of people didn't get a very good handle on him.
Yep.
Which is a shame. The reports out of LSU have been too from their coaches. He's a very coachable kid. He's a good kid. And he, I know a few of you guys have seen a lot of the mocks that I post. I've had him in a bunch of my mocks, right around, when I've traded back in the late second round, early third round. I've moved up to get him when he fell. And I can't for the life of me understand, maybe because he is so young, maybe some teams feel they've gotten burned with taking a kid at that position so young that he doesn't fully ever reach the potential. I'm not sure.
I would take Ojulari at 27. Like if that was the pick tomorrow, I'm not disappointed.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually did on a couple of mine that I think you saw in mid-March. And I know I caught a lot of slack, but I was like, I've seen this kid play like every game, and this kid's for real. If this kid, continues with his good attitude and gets the right coaching, you could have a hell of a find for the next 10 years, hopefully.
Dean has him as the leading tackler of the LSU defense, not to mention being a Nigerian prince.
That's right.
So Ben, you're up in 3 picks. Harrison is still there. Who would
How'd we get another?
Harrison's not there. What would you do, Pete?
Say that one again.
So Harrison's there. You're up in 2 minutes. Do you have a second
just
choice?
looking at this board, Will McDonald would be my second choice. He's a little undersized, but gosh, if he was 10 pounds heavier, people would be talking about Brian Burns when they're watching him, I think. And Burns was another one.
He was also tasked with being put into a position that he shouldn't be in the NFL.
You don't think he was a 3-3 defensive end for the NFL?
You?
I've heard the Brian Burns comparison. I think that was on the NFL Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
They made the Brian Burns comparison with McDonald, too.
I mean, there's the parallels. Burns was impressive because by the time Burns was doing weigh-ins, he had gained like 15 pounds from when he was playing at Florida State. But they're quick. They're knifing through people. He's quick enough and long enough to knife through on the inside. He's got a spin move, he's got counter moves. I mean, he's a great rusher. And even if you're just getting him as a pass rush specialist, especially for the Bills who have Shaq Lawson in the wings, it's probably going to be Rousseau and Lawson as their left and right defensive end to start the year. I'd love to be able to bring in Will McDonald on third down.
Well, what you're looking at with McDonald is a guy that has to put those moves together with his hands, and have the immediate counter. The counter has to come faster. That's coachable stuff, right? He's with guys who know how to do this stuff. He sees it, so it's not far off at all. McDonald to the Bills is a good choice.
I mean, if he was having buzz in the top 20, I wouldn't argue with it at all. I think he's great.
So
Well,
Rick, there was some rounder coming up in about 20 minutes.
There were some mocks on the PFF side of the world where the Seahawks were taking McDonald at 20.
That's an interesting one. That's always fun when you have the franchise where you can put the guy that you really like at the Seahawks that you don't think is going to be there in general. You know, the consensus isn't as high on McDonald, but you could say, nope. I really like McDonald, so maybe Seattle does.
Well, again, that's the difference between doing what I'm going to do versus the predictive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Rick, you're still good with McClendon in round 3?
Yeah, yes, sir.
And who are you thinking about in round 4? Give me like 4 or 5 names to add to keep track of.
Yep, I got them ready for you. Jamie Robinson, safety.
Okay.
The center out of Michigan. I'm not going to try saying his name.
Oh, it's the one.
I love him. The tight end, Luke Schoolmaker. And then the running back, the other running back from Texas,
Roschon Johnson. Now, somebody is admitted his fandom here, and he's scouting a helmet, but I won't get too critical about that, even though it's from my most despised place on earth, that school up north.
Be nice. I went to school there, so be nice.
You went to U of M?
Yeah, for about a year and a half, and then I had a serious ankle injury, and I transferred to a smaller school.
There you go. Yeah, well, being a Notre Dame guy, I'm right alongside the Ohio State folks. That school up north, that's it. Bone. We don't.
Okay. And then, Ben, in this draft with Washington and Ojulari, what are you thinking about for round 3?
You got offensive line, wide receiver.
Yeah, you got enough time here. Just go Just do one at a time, Jim.
Well, I want to get players added to the queue.
Oh, I know, but give them just the O-line guys first to see.
Yeah,
because there's enough time.
I see what you're saying. Okay,
yeah. So that way there you got Whippler, you've got Freeland, Duncan.
I like Freeland and Steen. Okay, yeah, I'm okay with Zavala.
Saldivari.
No, Zavala.
Zavala.
But
yeah,
but for a guard.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to wide receiver.
Yeah.
Got tight end, got edge, and then after this, D tackle, I think is another.
Okay.
Reed would probably be. See, I like all of those guys, but Reed would drop right in the slot. Nice.
I won't let anybody select him. I'm amazed that he's still getting picked.
Who, Reed?
No.
Boutte.
I don't think he gets drafted, or if he.
Oh yeah, he's dropping. He is dropping.
Yep. Oh, somebody's gonna take him. Somebody will take him.
That's okay. Let somebody else take him.
Defensive tackle.
Yeah, DT.
Dexter is still there. Pickens is there.
Short arms, but man, you gotta have Dexter in the queue.
Okay.
And Pickens as well. All right. So, what else? We got tight end and edge.
Yep. So this is who's in the queue.
Yeah.
And we've got. This draft. There's not quite 30 minutes. but we'll see who's still there closer to the pick.
Yeah.
Okay, and then for this one where we took Harrison, we're entering round 2. This is Pete's draft, right? So, Pete, who are you thinking about in round 2?
Can I see those tight ends and wide receivers?
Yes.
I'd love to see somebody from the slot that's still good in there.
So Mayer is still on the board.
So probably Downs is going to be my first guy.
How can Mayer be still on the board?
It's pick 3 of the second round.
How are all 3 of those tight ends?
Holy crap.
And then I'm going to put Dalton Kincaid in there. To me, Dalton Kincaid is probably not making it past
like
16.
Yeah, so if you look, just tight ends alone, this is what's there at the top of round 2.
Holy crap. And this is a strong tight end draft.
These guys went wide receiver in this mock. They went wide receiver.
Well, I think Kincaid is a big wide receiver, personally. I don't consider him a tight end.
He's catching everything, regardless of
yeah.
where you put him, yeah.
You like Laporta in round 2, or do you wait till round 3?
I think that's early.
I think that's early too.
What other wide receivers are there? There's probably still like Mims there. I'd put Mims ahead of Tillman, but then I would put Tillman on there. I don't think it'll come to it, but I put Scott and Mingo on there too. It's kind of nice because the Bills have sort of that one spot available for a receiver, and between the Shakirs of the world, they can kind of go slot or outside. I prefer slot. I honestly wouldn't even mind if they went pure slot in the first round. Our slot receiver is going to be on the field pretty much every snap anyways.
What are your thoughts on Downs?
I like Downs a lot.
Okay.
Downs has great athleticism. I like his toughness. The only knock I have on Downs is the route running, which it's funny because he's one that if you talk to certain people, they'll like the route running. For me, a lot of his route running is sort of run up to somebody, stutter, and then I'm faster than you, so I'm going to run away. Which in the NFL, you've got to be able to have a lot more moves than that.
Yeah,
I
but
like that he doesn't drop the ball.
coachable. That's
Exactly,
coachable,
yeah.
Pete.
Yep. I like him in round 2. It is coachable. It's the sort of thing where I wouldn't go with it in round 1 because it is kind of a big development to be able to have all that nuance. But man, I'd love him in round 2. I wouldn't mind.
Me too.
59.
Yeah.
So what I like about Downs, and I think the people that were on early heard me say this, but he gets separation, and Josh Allen only throws to receivers that are open.
Yep.
He doesn't throw.
He's a reactionary thrower.
Yeah, he doesn't necessarily throw a receiver open. So if Downs gets separation, he's a really good fit for Buffalo.
Yeah,
that's what makes him.
We have slot
better
receiver
fit
get 80
than I think
catches.
some of the other guys, and then I think somebody else also mentioned contested catches.
Mhm.
This draft has a lot of receivers that don't get contested catches. Josh Downs does.
Yep. And you know what? For this one, I do want to look at the edge in the D line. Oh, Keon White is still there. You can put him right at the top of mine. I actually White. I'm kind of contemplating sticking him in my top 20 for my predictive. He actually went and visited with several teams that are picking in the 10 to 20 range, and I like him a lot.
Keon White has to have the biggest range in this draft of
doesn't he?
I've seen people suggest that he could go in round 1 to New England. He's exactly the type of defensive lineman.
It is hilarious that you say that, Jim. So he's actually at Green Bay in my mock right now because that I guess I'm falling victim to the why did Green Bay want to move ahead of New England that badly. But it's either JSN, Kincaid, or Keon White in my mind. And I think that Keon White, I think his ideal fit is as a 5 tech. But I think he's a guy who could live as an edge / bump inside. He could live as a 3 tech. But I think right now he's a 5. That's kind of where he's got his best home. It's interesting too watching that Georgia tape because he's everywhere. As long as it's a 3, as long as it's like a 4-eye or out wider, he's there.
Wider. Yeah.
So you like to keep a guy on the edge who's been on the edge. But yeah, if nobody wants Keon White, the Bills will certainly gladly take him in round 2. Somebody's going to have to grab him. And then what were we at for noses? Did we have any nose tackles in there?
Yeah, they do.
Do they have Starlo Tulele Jr.?
So Coburn, Clark, Martin are the only noses left on the board.
One is Jim's guy and one is my guy.
See, so I like Martin based upon like a little bit that I've actually read about him more than anybody else on the list. The issue that I've heard is that he's bigger than what Bean usually drafts. Bean doesn't usually draft defensive linemen that are 330 pounds.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, he wants his 305-pound one tech.
Yep.
Yeah, he's not a believer in a zero.
Which, if it works, I don't care. There's guys that are 300 pounds that can stuff the run great. But when it doesn't work, and it's a guy that's 300 pounds, where does he go from there?
So one of the questions that I have, and we won't know this until week 1 when we see a McDermott defense versus a Frazier defense, right? Is the defensive lineman archetype a Leslie Frazier archetype? Or is it a Brandon Bean archetype? Is Bean telling Frazier the kind of lineman that he needs? Or was Frazier telling, this is the kind of lineman that I want? Because
I think it was that way.
What was that?
I think it was that way. I think Brandon Bean, I believe, is very open to pleasing. I shouldn't say pleasing, but giving the coaches what they request and want. Brandon Bean does not strike me as, this is what I'm giving you, make do with it.
No, I agree with that. I
think the positional coaches have a great deal of say in who Brandon's going to go get him.
How much did McDermott have to input on that, do you think?
Yeah, I think, and that's where like the Ojolari pick that we did earlier, I think that's where that fits. And there's even a lot of other players that are, let's say, the bendy edges that are going to be available throughout this draft, right? I think we're going to get bendier edges because McDermott wants to be more aggressive than what Frazier was. Frazier wanted people that could keep a quarterback in a pocket, collapse the pocket. Yeah. And I think the defense is going to be different.
Yeah.
It really works out no matter what war room you guys want to go to, whether it's Buffalo's, whether it's Arizona's or Dallas's, et cetera. It really works out. 1/3 of your picks will be because of coaches. 1/3 of the picks will be because of the scouts. And that other 1/3 is a hodgepodge. And that's usually your day 3 guys.
Yep.
But usually it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3.
You just hope that other third isn't. Hope that other third isn't your owner.
Is that the voice of experience, Greg?
Oh yeah.
You've been in the war room, or?
No. I've been with several people who have been though.
Okay.
Broadus, who was with both the Packers and Eagles before the Cowboys, and he now does the DallasCowboys.com stuff. Including Broadus had 4 Pro Bowlers in one draft for the Eagles, the bastard. But anyhow, but no, he broke it down over the years that he was in the league. That's the way it would work out. At the end of the day, the scouts would get 1/3 of the picks, the coaches 1/3, and you had those rare occasions where the owner steps in, right? In the first round, especially, the owners may step in.
That's just what I was thinking, Greg, that first round.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, there's some owners that have made some very good moves.
Some that have made
really some memorable moves. It's funny, I really got into the draft probably 2008 or so. So I remember some Al Davis picks that people, said, oh, here's Al Davis going again.
Absolutely.
Well, my favorite one, I think, was Napoleon Kaufman. And I'm dating myself because I think he's already been out of the league for more than a decade.
Napoleon McCallum?
Or McCallum, thank you. Right. He was the fast running back, right? Like there were like 3 or 4 running backs. I think everybody had higher, but Kaufman, or excuse me, what was the last name? McCallum.
Yeah.
McCallum, like his 40 time was like 0.3 of a second faster than the 4 best running backs. So they just grabbed him in the first round.
And that was a trait from Al Davis from the get-go with the American Football League.
Speed.
Al Davis had one word: speed.
Yep.
Because you can't coach it, and it's awful hard to catch it.
Yep.
Oh, so Greg, what would your one word be?
My one word?
Yeah.
For it depends on it. To me, I'm much more of a production person than anything else. Production matters to me.
If I had to do one, I would say hands, because I think that's the one you can't coach. You can't teach somebody to have good, like we have.
For what position?
In a lot of ways, every position, because you could really stretch it and bend it and be hand usage and.
Yeah.
And it's a lie that some of us get moved to safety and cornerback because we got bad hands. That's a lie.
Well, I never got moved to safety or cornerback. They tried to get me as close to the line of scrimmage as they could, close to football.
But hands are important. But when some people look at the upper body of an offensive lineman first. I never do. I look at the lower half
Yeah,
first.
the butt. You need the big butt.
I need the feet.
You need the feet.
Oh,
You need the feet.
Yeah.
I need the ability to see those feet being anchored. I need the ability to see it from the tackles. I need the kick slide to be there and things like that. That's what I'm looking at first, and then I go up with the offensive lineman. Some people do it the opposite though. They want to see the hand usage right away. Not me.
Yeah.
I want the anchor.
It's funny too. We were talking about offensive linemen a little bit earlier, I think, before Ben hopped on. And just kind of noticing other guys on the line when you watch them. I always love when you watch a rep and you see 4 offensive linemen chasing guys, and the one has got their guy latched on and is just winning that fight.
Yep. So I'm going to interrupt. So Rick, you're coming up here in 3 minutes or less. You selected Mozzie Smith, Cedric Tillman, and then McClendon appears to be your next off the board. You're still okay with that?
Let me take a look, brother. Yes.
Okay. And then for round 4, you're looking at Sewell, Robinson, Timmy, Schoonmaker, Johnson.
Correct.
Okay. So
I got Simpson already, right?
Say again?
Or no?
No, we did not get a linebacker. Simpson got sniped about 2 picks before Tillman was taken.
10-4. Can you bring that back up again? Is it too late to take
You
one
tell
out?
me who you want. You tell me who you want.
Owen Papo.
Auburn. Yeah.
And you want him in round 3?
No, I wanted to add him to the queue.
Got it. Okay.
No.
He's added. Cool.
Yeah, he's just added to your queue.
Okay.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Okay. So you're cool with the tackle. Okay. So then this one, we've got a pick coming up. So this one is Ben. Washington at tight end, Ojulari at edge. And coming up in round 3, right now it's Freeland's at the top. Is there a player that you prefer, Ben?
Let's see. The question is he going to beat out or just be a swing tackle at this point? I'm wondering if Pickens is the play.
I definitely like the idea of defensive line.
Yeah.
Here.
I'm leaning Pickens at this point.
Okay. You still have time to change your mind, or we can go look for different players.
Yeah.
Rick, you had a Papo. Have you watched Ivan Pace Jr.?
Yeah. Yes, I have. I prefer, like, it'd be close between those two. Like, if the Bills pick Pace, I wouldn't be like, holy shit, why'd they do that?
Okay.
I like Papo, if I'm saying his last name right.
Yep, you got the
I like the way his instincts were, and not that Paces is bad. He seemed to read. I watched him in a game. I believe it was against Mississippi State. I'd have to go back in my notes and look. They ran a couple of screenplays that, I mean, this kid just detected almost as soon as the ball was snapped, and both times shut the play down. And that's hard to do from coming from the other side of the field. It was.
Yep.
And
I like Papal. I just wanted to throw Pace's name into that.
yeah, no, I've got no issue with Pace. Between the two of them, it just comes down to a personal preference. That's it.
Okay. So, Pete, this is what your round 2 is looking like. We are 8 picks away from Buffalo, and I love what your board looks like between White, Ojulari, Downs, and Musgrave still being on the board.
Yeah, that's nice. Can you see? Is Henley still on the board, the linebacker?
If those guys are on the board, still Henley's got to be there.
Holy mackerel! This is a whacked out. This
Yeah,
one's whacked out.
Yeah, let's take a look at this draft and decide how whacked out it is.
Because Henley is the one that, if the Bills can't find a guy that they really like at 27, Henley is a guy, man, if he's there at 59 or near 59, and they really want somebody to step in ahead of who they've got already, that's okay with me.
Yeah,
So,
guys that make plays.
So the first 7 here look very normal to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So does the next.
Well, Stroud at 8 is normal too. Like, I don't want to make it sound like that's abnormal, other than the team that got him at that spot is a little different. But that looks normal. Skoronski and Johnson top 10. That feels very normal, right?
Well, here's where it gets wonky. Hendon Hooker went to
right.
the Texans at 12.
But the Texans took Will Anderson and Hooker, so just the quarterback flip with a position.
Flip-flop. Yeah.
That still feels normal.
That's okay.
But Hendon Hooker, that high? I mean,
that just looks like trying to be predictive with, there's a lot of that heat coming out on Hooker.
But I
would stay away from Johns. But that's he has traits.
I think he met
the damn Eagles made their move and got Bijan.
Okay. Gonzalez, Jones to the Jets, Van Ness, Porter. Okay.
Murphy,
Right.
Noah, Addison, Cansey.
Okay, that's a little different.
Will McDonald to the Cowboys. That's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Anton Harrison to you guys. That's fine. Breezy, Flowers in there. Forbes hitting. Uzama is a Chiefs pick through and through. But the top of the second gets funky. Hyatt that quickly. Cam Smith, Mozzie, Mayer falling, Tillman.
This looks, you know something? Even though maybe it's a unique, like, Mauk to Green Bay combination, the players are going within 3 or 4 spots, I think, of where any of us would otherwise predict them.
Yeah. So who's left on the board for this mock?
So the top players on the board right now are Simpson, Musgrave, Turner, Foskey, Hall, Charbonnet, Tooley.
That seems about right. Ojulari just went.
Yeah.
Have you guys watched Hall?
Yes, I have at least.
I have not.
Yeah, I felt like he was kind of stiff for not a very large rusher.
I that's why I don't have him on anything. I used to call him Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't like his game, really.
He was one. I read his report and I said, okay, yeah, that's a good one to watch. And then I kind of started watching him and thought, this is one where I just don't agree with what I read.
Yeah. No, you know what? The game that put me off for him, I want to say it was the game against Ole Miss. And he got eaten up. He got swallowed by a kid that was a sophomore constantly all game. And it was a game I sat down to watch with the sole purpose of watching him and Tank Bigsby. And I was disappointed in Hall. And there's no moves from him. His repertoire of moves, there isn't any.
He's
So,
he's
so
he is.
I'm going
he
to
is
interrupt here.
quickly-
So,
go ahead.
Pete, you are on the clock. You have a minute to make your choice.
Simpson just went.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we're going Marvin Mims.
I like how quickly you make your decisions. Carry on with the conversation.
Yeah, for me with Hall, he's a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
He's a bull rush, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And it wasn't a great bull rush.
No, it's
No.
not.
Against a good lineman, I thought, against a good lineman that's got good hand placement, you control him.
Oh, the Alabama tackles who aren't overly great this year,
No.
they pounded on him.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're getting that on Saturdays, and again, as I'm watching these games, I have to think, what are they going to face on Sundays? So
he's sitting there. The reason why he's sitting where he sits on these things, though, the testing
Yeah.
numbers gave him a boost.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that
Ooh.
see, I don't fall for that because
No,
show me what you did on Saturday. You know, that's why I watch 8 games a week. Show me what you did on Saturdays.
So this is why it's important for us to have the cues. So Ben's draft got Freeland because I didn't flip over quick enough.
I'm not
That was-
disappointed.
Yeah,
That
Freeland.
was one of the players that was in the queue. So Ben, after you look at this draft here, who are you thinking in round 4?
We got offensive line. DT drops really quick. I don't know who you have left on defensive tackle. I like Brooks. I like McGuire.
And keep in mind that 28 and 2 come like within 5 minutes of each other. So
Yeah,
you're
that's
trying
right.
to find 2 players.
Yeah, so pull up. Let's see, Diaby, Brooks, and McGuire for DT, and okay, so we got offensive, defensive line would be good. And what do we have for wide receivers? Not that I'm. And we're at 4. We're in 4th round. Yeah, put Perry, Hutchinson, and Wilson in the queue.
Okay.
A.T. Perry would be fun with Josh.
Yeah, definitely like his guy.
Not so much a slot, but he gives he threatens the opponents. Yeah, if he can hold the ball.
Well, some of those issues for Perry in terms of the ball also had to do with who was throwing him the ball.
Sure.
Unfortunately, the guy who was throwing him the ball is playing for Notre Dame this year.
Tell us how you really feel, Greg. Don't.
Well, I have
don't
no
hold back.
problem. I have no problem saying how I really feel when it comes to that. It's
So Pete, in the Harrison Mims draft, who you thinking in round 3?
I would still keep that top tight end. If there's a really nice tight end, I wouldn't mind grabbing a tight end. I think I would take the wide receivers off that are on there right now, and then I would look front 7, just trying to find the best deal in front 7.
Okay, so tight ends.
what other tight end do you like after Musgrave?
I mean, it's going to sound like everybody else, but Shoemaker's got a nice skill set, especially for the Bills. I mean, it's kind of one that there's a lot of groupthink in the Bills community, but for good reason, I think. He's got a nice skill set. He can kind of do a little bit of everything. I think that the Bills are trying to get somebody who is also a receiving threat. I personally would like somebody who's more of just a move tight end or a Y. They have Reggie Gilliam doing sort of H-back duty, but he, other than the first couple games, they kind of took him out and never really used him for that again. So
Well,
if they
because
can
of
do a nice
because
piece
of because of who the GM is, Pete, and his love of athleticism,
Mhm.
there's no way in hell that Brandon Bean would not be looking at Zach Kuntz.
Oh, yeah.
He would just be all over Zach.
So Schoonmaker was a 30 visit, which is probably why everybody in Bill's Mafia tends to go that way.
Yeah.
But I agree with the athletic traits, and because this is a tight end too.
Yep. I like Kuntz and I like Strange as well.
Yep.
Yeah, Kuntz, I mean, he's as athletic as you could possibly get, pretty much.
And then you said front seven on defense, right?
Yeah, just I'll go for linebacker, I'll go for edge, nose, whatever's there.
So Dexter is still on the board. Pickens is still on the board.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to keep going down. I wouldn't even put Dexter in there.
Herbig.
Nope. I'd put Williams in there.
Williams, that would be a fun.
I'd put McGuire in there. I guess Young. It'd be kind of early for the Texas D lineman, but if I'm running out of defensive linemen, maybe.
Third round.
Looks like everybody went heavy edge. Can I just see what edge are left? Okay.
So for edge, I like Hampton, Ramirez, Phelps.
And did I see the Ohio State kid up there too?
Is Harrison?
I think he just got picked, didn't he?
Did he? He was there for a second.
No, they have Harrison as a DL. That's the issue.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Oh,
they
defensive
have Harrison.
line. Okay.
He's here.
Yeah.
There's
You want
some
Harrison
guys
up
that we're
there?
missing. And Diaby too.
Yeah, you got to balance out Rick's overload on the Michigan players. You got to.
That's only that round.
Can we just directly bust the Michigan Wolverines to Buffalo?
Well, listen, there's somebody, I don't know who it is, but there's somebody from that team, because in past years, obviously, because I got a connection there, I follow the games, they send a scout or somebody.
Yep.
This is the first year that I can remember they have been there at just about every game Michigan's played.
Michigan was the most scouted team, according to Dean Kindig. I believe Buffalo was at Michigan games with a credentialed scout 6 times.
Yeah, and if you
Last
go
year
off
it was Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
This year it was Michigan.
So there's somebody's got their interest peaked. Who it could be, don't know.
Well, then you better put the other offensive lineman on your list, Rick. Hayes.
Who? Hayes? I'll pass on that one. I think when it comes up, I've got my.
Yeah, the center's the better choice. But
that's what I was going to say. A lot of people are throwing the center out there. I like the center. The hard thing actually about scouting the Michigan O-line is like from left tackle to right guard, everybody was all ACC. So you're going to watch
all which conference? All which conference did you just say?
Big Ten. I said Big Ten. I'm thinking
right.
ACC.
I'll wipe out the ACC mention. It's okay. It's editing works.
Jim, edit that out.
but hey, Pete, you know what? I'll give you the credit for ACC because that's where Ole came from Virginia. So I'll give you credit for that too.
Yeah.
I am multitasking, and when I look at somebody from the ACC, I say ACC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they had a lot of accolades on the offensive line, which when you watch them, it just makes it harder. You really got to watch a little closer because everybody's going to be doing okay. They're passing guys off a little better than typically in college. The calls are better. I mean,
now two straight years of the quote unquote top O line in CFP.
ACC dominance, right?
Well, no, the entire CFP.
Okay, so what position? I'm going to go through this draft. This queue is thin, so this would be Ben.
I'm looking at wide receiver and D tackle.
Okay, so wide receiver, we've got in the queue. We've got Hutchinson and Wilson.
Okay, and D tackle.
We've added Diaby, Brooks.
Is Roy
McGuire.
still available? Who else is in the?
It does not look like it. No,
Oh,
he
okay.
got picked 2 picks ago.
Yeah. Okay. I think I need Hog Molly to save face with Dean. So who's the top DT?
Diaby.
Well, he's no go nose tackle, go NT.
Coburn.
Does you think he's a fit? I was schooled that he's.
Yeah, you see, like, I like mocking these guys to Buffalo, and I don't think Dean's ever going to take any one of these top 3 guys because they're too big.
Right.
So we're looking.
I don't see them.
We're
What's
looking
that?
for a DL. Like Brooks fits what the archetype might be.
From Bowling Green.
I've heard good things about Turner, but I know that was mixed because I did a mock with Turner yesterday, and there was some criticism of it. So some people think that because, like, to me, he's somewhere between an edge and an interior tackle. Like, he's an Oliver that you can kick outside,
Yeah.
right? But apparently that was not a favorite. Mike Morris, if he drops. That was a player Dean said that was on Dean's pick 6.
Right.
So,
And I look at Horton as more of an outside.
yeah, like when you see 275,
Yeah.
we can't put him over DaQuan Jones. And like DaQuan Jones is to me who we need to draft. We need to draft
Right.
a
Somebody better than right.
Yeah. I've heard great things about Cameron Young. Can somebody fill me in on him?
SEC.
There's some things to like about Cameron Young, but there's quite a bit not to like about him. That's why he's sitting where he is.
That's
Okay.
what I was gonna say. I didn't find that much to like about him, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
he didn't. Now there's a guy in Coon who can play outside passing, inside on passing downs and outside on runs. Sets a
Sounds
very
like
good
Boogie
edge.
Basham.
He sets a very good edge. He's strong. He's got a good game plan for his hand usage. So that's a guy that you could look at. Is Incoom from Central Michigan.
And then
He's just a smaller school guy.
I've also heard a couple people promoting this guy right here.
So
Yep. But again, when it comes to all picks for Buffalo, give me guys who have played in the northern climate too. You know, give me as many of them.
Don't take the Arizona guy, take the Central Michigan guy.
Yeah, give me the guys that are used to the nasty stuff.
Okay.
That's
Now-
why scouting Michigan makes so much sense for them,
So
right? I
in
mean,
this draft, we'll also want to look at either, like, we have a couple defensive linemen in the queue, right? So right now, Diaby's or Brooks or McGuire will be the next pick, right? We have a couple wide receivers. What other positions to round this out?
this Pete's?
This
No,
is
that's my,
This is Ben's. I don't think
Yeah.
Ben's got the linebackers.
yeah, linebackers and DBs towards the end. We got tight end, got offensive tackle, got defensive edge. Looking at D tackle is the next big need.
There's
But
Pace still on there.
Linebacker, I'm looking for just value. Oh, Jamie's still there.
Mm-hmm.
I like Jamie. That would be a good fit.
And my goal was to add players to the queue. That way we just have
Yeah,
enough there that we take somebody and it's not a board pick.
right.
And we have to take 2 picks in a row,
Real close, right?
real close. So we need
Pete,
So-
how much how often do you think the Bills are going to go down to the 2 linebackers this year?
every down.
I think it's
Every
gonna
down?
be. I think it's
Yeah,
gonna be.
we start a nickel.
I think it's gonna
Teron
be same
Johnson
old. Yeah,
is
I don't think they added Rap to have kind of like a extra safety on there. I think that Taron Johnson is too good to take off the field.
Yeah,
Really,
you can't take it. Yeah.
he's a playmaker when the game's on the line. He's gritty when you need him. Every time we get gashed against the run, I'm on Twitter saying it's not Taron Johnson that's stopping us from stopping the run.
Right.
If,
You know,
if,
I mean,
if
granted,
Taron
he's not-
Johnson gets injured, who's filling in? Rap?
So
You're
Greg,
right.
I think Buffalo plays the
Maybe
highest
Rap, yeah.
percentage nickel of any team in the league.
I thought it was the highest last year, but you guys have you got that little switch going. So is it going to fall?
it's the same.
Teron Johnson's like one of the highest paid nickels in the league.
No, I know he's highest paid. I'm just talking about the coaching.
Yeah, even with the coaching change, I think it stays the same. The nice thing about having Johnson and just going nickel all the time is that allows them to mix up, and you never can know what they're doing. I think that McDermott is just going to use that same template but be more aggressive with it. Whereas Leslie
Because
Frazier,
I was kind of agreeing with
everything
Ben
was
there because of the injury factor for the linebacker. That's why I'm agreeing with Ben at
So-
that spot.
So one of the things that I've begun to like, I came to this conclusion on myself. Obviously, we have no evidence that this is the way that one Bills drive things, but we drafted 2 linebackers last year. I don't think we're drafting a linebacker. Like
No,
we
I
don't
agree.
have to unless it's the right value. It's better to put big bodies on the line than to reach for a linebacker, because any linebacker we grab,
Isn't going
unless
to.
his name is Jack Campbell, that linebacker's not going to start.
Right.
Okay, does the new coach get his way though over Bean's preference for the 305?
Well, the new defensive coordinator's the head coach.
Yeah, I'm saying does McDermott say we actually do need a fatty? We need a nose tackle. We have a guy that we have to play twice a year in Brees Hall.
Yeah, like
we have to deal with this guy for 2
I
games.
would definitely consider.
Listen, and don't forget the biggest, and again, a lot of people don't like to think down the road. You don't have a defensive tackle. We don't have a defensive tackle signed past this year.
Bingo.
You do not. It's much better to have a defensive tackle of quality that you're getting in the fold and getting used to everything, that not all the pressure is on the kid to be drafted next year. And here you go, you're starting.
And that's McBean's philosophy, at least in the last few years, because we don't have a linebacker. We have linebacker needs, and what did we get last year? 2 linebackers.
Right. So
We have a
We did,
wide receiver need. What did they get last year? Wide receiver.
absolutely.
They did break from that tendency on nose tackle last year when they signed Jones as well. I mean, he's about 320, and you got to hope the success of Jones influences how they look at that position going forward.
Yep.
I think that too with the
I don't think the weight. Oops.
Go ahead, Rick. Or maybe not. I was going to say, I don't think that I think we're going to extend Jones. I know we don't have anybody signed right now, but you got to think that that's in the works, because it would relieve a little bit of his cap hit this year, and they like to be able to put a little coupon down the road. And I think he's an easy one. Maybe Johnson as well. I know they just extended him 2 years ago, but
Yeah, I know they had not re-signed Jones yet, and that's why I'm asking about the bigger type nose tackle type, right?
yeah, I think the desire's got to be there from both sides to do that extension.
Yeah, so Pete, in this one here where you took Mozzie in round 1,
Mm-hmm.
could you give me about 7 or 8 players that you're targeting for those last 3 picks? Right now in your queue, there are 4 left, including Schoonmaker, Oyutami, Sewell, and Popo.
So this one's not mine. I didn't grab Mozzie, but I can talk about this one. I think this
This
one
one
was
is
Rick's.
Rick's. This is
Oh,
Rick's.
I'm sorry. Oh, and then it looks like Rick dropped. Okay, so go ahead, Pete. I'll let you go ahead and fill it in.
Yeah, so if we're looking at everybody, I mean, it's Shoemaker's right there. Do we have we've already got receiver. So I know that I would look again at that edge. I mean, we got Mozzie, but I would look at edge. I would look for a 3-tech as well.
Okay. Do you like Hampton? Or
I was going to
Ramirez?
say is Carl Brooks is still there, but no, he just got picked by the Panthers.
Yeah, he just went off the board.
And I do like him
There
to
goes
jump into
Luke.
3 technique full time.
Wait, you like who to be 3 technique full time?
Brooks.
Carl
kid-
Brooks.
Yeah, the kid from Bowling Green.
Bowling Green.
Even just athletically, he can't really exist outside like he did in the MAC.
But it looks like Brooks already went. Okay,
Yeah,
there we
He
go.
just went.
Okay.
Yeah, he just went.
Yeah,
So you're looking at edge.
Your next closest, McGuire is a decent option at that point, Pete.
Yeah. I think I would put McGuire in there.
Yeah.
I would, yeah.
And then are you?
Let's see.
It's okay to only put 1. Like we don't need to queue up 20
Mhm.
players.
How about the interior O line just while we're on here?
Olusegun is sitting there.
Mm-hmm. And he's already in the queue. I think they would like the kid from Alabama as well. He's the second one up there.
Yeah, Ikior.
Mm-hmm. And I liked him. I mean,
Isn't he hurt?
it's funny.
I've heard good things about Bradford from non-Bills podcasters.
It's funny.
I think somebody had Bradford in their top 100. Like they liked him that much.
Mm-hmm. I like Richards. It's funny to see him as an interior offensive lineman on some things because I think he's a guy that you want to stick outside and
Well, Richards is
could end up being a.
Gaines is another person I've seen go on day 2 in some mocks. So some people have a day 2 grade on him.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe he can play center as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't mind Richards at this point either because I do like some of the things I see from him. I mean, he's a day 3 guy for a reason, but yeah, I mean he's somebody who at least has some pop on tape sometimes.
I would have Gaines over Mafi 500 consecutive days in a row.
Okay.
No, Mafi has got to have some of the worst footwork that I watched all year.
Mm-hmm.
It's just horrible.
Okay.
Horrible.
Now, what do you guys think of Juice Scruggs? Like, I like that he plays center. We've scouted him a few times. I know that he showed up high on Dean's list.
Mm-hmm. There's a center, Blythe. I like Blythe, and it's some places you look and he's in the 200s on a big board.
Are you talking?
Who's
Are
that?
you talking Alec Forsyth from Oregon?
Or yeah, Forsyth. Why am I saying Blythe? Ugh. See, you guys.
That was
and I
a
just
player
have them all
last
up
year.
in my
Austin
head.
Blythe. I think it was a player last year.
Austin Blythe, yes. Something with a Y in there. Greg, that's a good call. See,
No, but I think that player's already out. So remind me what the player's name was.
Alec Forsyth.
Forsyth. Yeah, he's out.
Yeah.
He's one that there's people that have him in this. I thought of him because you said in the top 100. There's people
He was
who have
still
him in the
there.
top
Apparently, I
100.
spelled it. Oh, he's listed
under
in here as an offensive tackle.
Yeah, they got him at tackle. So yeah.
That's how underrated he is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
That happens.
Okay.
That
So
happens.
there's no running backs in this one.
Mhm.
Buffalo had a 30 visit from Moppy. Now I have to know, is he
Moppy should be under very serious consideration.
He may have already gone.
Thought you didn't like Muffy.
No, Moppy.
Oh,
It's MAPE.
oh, okay, yeah.
The Sacramento
linebacker?
State, safety linebacker combo.
Safety,
Yeah.
I'll tell you who I was getting him confused with. 2016 center picked by the Colts, Austin
Yep.
Blythe.
Austin
He
Blythe.
was around here for he was around for about 5 years.
Yeah.
No, that's not the player, right?
No, it was Forsyth. Yeah, Greg was right on it.
No, I was looking for the strong safety outside linebacker.
Oh,
Mape. You just had him.
Was him? Was it
Yeah, that was
Mapu
him.
or Mapi?
Mapu. Sorry, Mapu.
they got him listed as linebacker. Yeah, I think that's where he'll sit. Some places have him as a safety still, but I think he's a linebacker.
Okay.
We have
him in for a visit.
Yeah, we need to also have just a blanket DB because these guys are being moved to every possible secondary position. Now it's not even funny.
Yeah,
Except for your field corner, everybody else is moving into different spots.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of like we were talking about with the combine. You know, everybody's got those historical numbers and don't necessarily want to move positions around. But we're talking about wide receivers, and you've got slot receivers mixed in with guys that are going to be on the boundary.
Mhm.
So Pete, and you had the Anton Harrison draft, right?
Yeah,
We
that's me.
grabbed Schoonmaker while we were working on the other board.
Bills fans are going to love this one. It's all offense.
Okay.
So what are you looking at next?
Yep.
I hope we see some defense that we like. Who do we still have in the queue? McGuire, okay.
Dorian Williams, Byron Young.
And we can take out the tight ends.
Right.
Dorian Williams to me would be a steal at 130. I know that he's not a prototype inside or middle linebacker, but we play those two linebacker systems. I like when I watch Tulane, and he's the guy that they ask to do the job that they need done well. On third down, they're going to ask him to rush. Sometimes they're going to ask him to cover.
If you watched every single Tulane game, Dorian Williams made an impact in every single one of them.
And that's what I like.
There was not one game that he did not make an impact play.
And that's what I like. And he slips around blocks. He doesn't take them on really well, but he does have length, and he is putting on some weight. I mean, he weighed in at almost 230 at the combine.
Yeah, 228.
Yep. So he's got a frame that you can hopefully add another 8 pounds to.
Yep. Just
big enough that he can at least get some grip on the ground when somebody's running into him.
Do you think he'll get on the field at all? Or is this developmental?
He'll be a special teams player. He'll be able to make the team as a special teams player.
Yep.
I kind of
he might beat out like a Matakevich.
I kind of think that he'd be a starter.
Yep.
I don't think you can keep him off the field. I like him a lot.
He would be a steal for the Bills at this point. He would be a steal.
I wouldn't be surprised if he goes on in the top 50.
Wow.
Just because he's that good to me. He makes plays all the time. He's got great numbers. He pops off the tape. The Bills did go down to Tulane and they talked to the running back, but I don't think that they, skipped Williams while they were down there.
Who went for the Bills to Tulane? Who did the visit?
Ooh, that's a Dean question.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I don't know who did their visits, right?
I'm not sure who went. But yeah, I mean, Dorian Williams, to me, he was exciting to watch. And he's one of those guys, like we were talking about Will McDonald, because they're played out of position in college, they don't necessarily look like you expect them to look in the NFL.
Exactly.
And that's the same thing with Brooks that we were just talking about. And obviously the college coaches are just trying to win football games, and they should be. But part of what I like about watching players is to say, okay, I see where they're going to be more successful, where they could find their home as a position.
So this draft, because it has more users, is catching up to the draft that started 30 minutes before it. I just found that to be humorous. I was just doing the math, trying to figure out what pick's coming up next.
And sometimes you're wrong when you project guys to be in a different position, like Hassan Reddick and Isaiah Simmons. I mean, I really liked Isaiah Simmons, and he just hasn't quite caught on as a full-time linebacker. And Hassan Reddick, I mean, it was amazing to me that the Cardinals picked him and tried him at inside linebacker when he was such a good hand in the dirt rusher.
Yep.
It's no surprise that now that he's rushing full time, he's successful.
Jim,
Well,
can you pull up the defensive tackle Q on this one?
Sure.
Young. How'd you know? Turner, Redmond.
This draft, the defensive line has hit its cliff.
Yeah. Doesn't mean we don't want one. Like,
Oh, correct. So this is where I say, like, we go to the bigger side. Right? We have, like, if we're gonna err, you don't want to err on somebody
On the
that's the same
thin, right.
size as Oliver. You want to err on getting somebody bigger.
Or you go to a different position.
Correct. But I mean, this draft doesn't have a defensive tackle.
Right.
I think Ajomo is the guy that the Bills, especially when you're talking about day 3 guys, he doesn't jump off the tape or anything, but he is a guy who can hold
fits.
at the point of attack.
He fits.
Yeah, he can hold up,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not a huge guy.
Yeah. Thank you.
So that's what people
You go ahead.
people miss it too much. Guys who are just solid, easy to coach. Jomo fits that bill. He does his job. He's not spectacular, but he does his job.
You know,
And he's in a
4th round
rotation.
pick, if he gets 25, right, because we rotate our defensive linemen.
Exactly.
If he can take 25% of the snaps, right, just for 4 straight years, take 25% of the snaps, that's a good use of a roster spot.
Yeah, you can't pick guys that are over a 9 RAS and have a ceiling of being an all-pro.
Well, that's why you have a hard time with Davis last year, with a couple of the other Georgia line guys this year. They don't have more than 370 snaps in their career because of their rotation.
Yep. And it's hard to find a full game on some of them too.
On almost all of them.
Yeah. Which is, again, when you're watching, you want to see start to finish a game, not start to we're blowing some out.
And it's your same argument that you can get into with Lucas Van Ness, right? I mean, the guy was not even a starter. You want to put him into the top 15?
I'm right there with you. I have Van Ness 24 to Jacksonville right now, and that's just because I think that he's going with all the people talking. You figure enough people are saying it, they're either just copying everybody or somebody is saying that.
Well, hey, it worked well enough last year to become the number 1 pick overall.
Oh.
Okay,
Number 1 pick, not the number 1 play. I still can't believe it. How do you not pick Hutchinson? Especially when you're talking about athleticism. What's wrong with Hutchinson as an athlete?
Nothing.
So, Pete, we have a similar defensive line quandary in this one where we went offense the first 3.
Yep.
Pickens just went off the board.
Okay.
And Buffalo is still like 35 picks away.
Okay. I'm fine without Pickens. He's a guy I would be more comfortable with Pickens in like the 6th or late 5th. We don't have a late 5th.
Okay. So right now, there's 2 defensive linemen. My goal here would be to add about 6 or 7 more players to this queue.
Okay.
So who do you like?
Can I see those interior offensive linemen? Because I'm probably going to put some of them still on there. Did we lose a lot of interior offensive linemen, or did we not put them on? You can take the defensive players off for a second. I'll probably put a Jomo on in a minute, but I want to see who's there for offense. Yeah, I'd put OO. And I'd put
I will help you. Olugun Oluwatimi.
Atola. Say it again.
Olusegun
Oluwatimi.
Olosegun Olawatini.
Yep.
Olu.
Olusegun is the family name. The last name is more of where you're from in the country, et cetera, et cetera.
I like it. I like getting names right. So I would put Asim Richards in there too, and then I think we can go look at the D tackles. I'll probably put a Jomo in there next. We have McGuire in there still, so I think he was maybe in the.
I think he's got, he's on the.
Oh, was he nose tackle?
Different one, or somebody just took him.
Yeah, I think Moro Jomo might have gone. Yes, he did.
Okay, so somebody just took him.
They just took him. Yeah,
they liked him more than I did. And then I'll put Roy in there. Sure, he's one. It's funny because people will say, "Oh, his RAS is a 3 or whatever." You're talking about a defensive tackle.
And the other guy on this board who has really gotten a lot of heat suddenly is Mr. Redmond.
Yep,
Oklahoma.
Heat? Why heat?
Yeah. And Morris we talked about.
What are your thoughts on Jared Clark?
He's my guy.
Is he?
Yeah, Greg likes him.
He is my big fatty to the Dallas Cowboys so fast that
Yeah.
I would sprint to the podium.
Greg will take Jared Clark in the 4th round.
See, I think I could only find like one game to watch on Clark. I mean, I can see it. I see why people like him, but it's only one game. I'll put him on there, sure. Greg,
I've seen more than one game.
Maybe I'll trade ahead again. Can we trade ahead of Dallas and take him for Greg?
just pick him for me again.
Greg's not picking for Dallas in this. He's just chatting with us.
Yeah,
just for posterity's sake.
But the other, he really is my fifth round guy. The other night, I had dealt my 5th round pick, so I took him in the 4th as it was.
Mm-hmm. And
yeah, so when Cover One was doing that event, what was it, last Friday?
On Friday,
Greg was picking for Dallas, and I was picking for Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. I would put Dorian Williams ahead of McGuire.
Yeah,
as long as we're here. I think he'll. I kind of thought he would have been taken right now, but
that's surprising.
It's funny too because there's guys that you love and you just watch them sit on the board during the draft and you say, "What's going on?"
This is why I like doing 32 person, going against a person and not a simulator.
Yeah,
because you're getting volatility of different people will have different rankings. That was how I designed NFL Draft Fanatics. I wanted the volatility of different teams have different rankings on players.
Mm-hmm.
That volatility is actually what makes the draft, let's say, more interesting. And to me, those are the talking points. Why does Greg like player A? Why does Pete like player B? Nobody's wrong. It's all about what's the fit for the team. And
no. Rick was wrong every single time he took somebody from that school up north. That's easy.
Yep.
There's Diaby.
Okay, so let's see how we're doing.
Diaby just went.
Okay, so we got an interior offensive lineman on this one.
Yeah, that's Rick's.
This is the one that Rick started.
Yeah,
so let's verify that.
And guess what school he went to? So Rick will be happy. He got 2 guys from his school.
We have defensive lineman and offensive tackle, interior offensive line. So I'm thinking running back in this one. So let's see who's there. Miller's there. Evans is there.
Oh, you skip right over Tucker, huh?
Okay.
I'm just asking.
No, talking about Bills, the Bills will probably like an Eric Gray, senior, big power guy.
Fantastic. So I like being different. I've never mocked Tucker or Gray.
I would also put down the very good 3rd down receiving back there in Mr. McIntosh.
Now I think Buffalo's going to go with a bigger back. I don't think we're going to go with a little guy.
Well, Kenny's not little. Kenny's no little fella.
Oh, okay. I thought you said he was a little receiving back. I thought that was
No,
right.
the third down receiving back.
Oh,
He's specialized in keeping the sticks moving for Georgia.
he's not bad at breaking tackles.
Okay.
Yeah, and that too.
That was another one last year with Cook, talking to people about Cook is not going to be the special. Like, Cook can run between the tackles. That's just not what Georgia was doing. Georgia
No.
would switch him out and have the fourth rounder went to the Raiders. They would have him bound between tackles.
Okay.
Mhm.
So this draft here, we do a running back and either another, like an edge, maybe.
He hasn't done tight end yet.
Oh,
If they want to hit that,
yes, that would be important.
Strange was good. Davis.
There's Davis Allen still
Yeah.
sitting there. Holy mother of Lord.
And
Payne Durham.
Durham was a 30 visit.
And Cameron Latu out of Alabama. A lot of people like Latu late.
Okay, so that one we've got a good queue. Buffalo picks once, and then it's a long wait. And in this one, I'm going to move the tight end up.
All right, that all offense one I don't like at all. The reason why, I want 11 guys playing for the Buffalo Bills that will eliminate that 38-year-old crybaby mouthpiece once and for all. I think that should be goal number one for the Bills. Who cares about winning the division or anything else?
Mike
It's
McDaniels?
out of football.
Is Mike McDaniels 38?
No.
I think he,
The guy that is apparently going to throw the passes for the Jets.
I said, I think it was yesterday. I think Jim saw this. I said, now it would be the perfect time for Aaron Rodgers to retire.
okay, so this draft here, we've got both the linemen,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the one that Ben had. We would think wide receiver, running back, or another defensive lineman, or even another offensive lineman.
What? Try the wide receivers.
Yeah, let's say wide
Give me a one.
receivers. I like the late round wide receivers in this draft.
So Hutchinson is still available.
Trey Palmer is still there.
You guys like Palmer?
And if you guys want pure speed, there he is, Princeton.
So who do you guys like? Ben, who do you like here?
Who is at the top again?
Xavier Hutchinson.
Let's see. I like
Otto
Hutchinson.
has Xavier Hutchinson as the 11th best offensive player in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
I like Hutchinson a lot. I don't know if he's a slot, but I like Hutchinson a lot.
So right now he's the one that's at the top of the card.
I'm not disappointed.
And we pick in 3 spots. So let's see if he lasts 3 spots.
You can
2
use
spots.
Hutchinson in the slot, and you can also use him on your boundary side.
Yeah.
Oh, and if you look, right, 6'3", 205, he
Yeah,
has
so
the
big.
prototype size.
And he could
Sure.
replace Davis next year.
Yep.
And then there was one more a little further down from Iosavac.
Yeah, Charlie Jones.
Charlie Jones. There's your
I
your
like
man
him.
in
I
the
like him
slot.
late. Yeah, I like.
There's
He
your
doesn't
man
drop
in
the
the slot.
freaking ball. He's
Nope.
the slot. Yeah.
He's Cooper Kupp.
Do you want Jones or Hutchinson, Ben?
For the 5th round, I have to go Jones.
Okay.
I like them both. I really do. But for the fit, I like Jones. I think he gets open, gets better separation. He doesn't drop the freaking ball.
Okay. And then what other position would we do here? Running back, line.
What are your thoughts on DB? Because we have 2 old safeties that aren't going to last next year.
So in a weak safety class, let's see who's left.
Plus, they'd have to beat out Rap or
Brandon Joseph still there. Wow.
What? Joseph and Daniel Scott, the top 2 right there. Daniel Scott from California is so underrated.
And
don't
Jay
know him.
Ward was scouted by Buffalo a lot.
LSU,
Like Buffalo
yeah.
was at LSU a lot.
Yeah. So tell me about Daniel Scott there.
Well, he went to Cal.
Right.
So if anybody knows Cal Berkeley, the gray matter is a very important thing. His football IQ is off the charts. He can go primarily, he's going to be more box towards the line, but he can and has been used as the free on occasion and has held his own. It's not his preferred thing to do, but he's got the versatility to do jack of all trades sort of thing. But his key thing will be the special teams ability for you. Plus, he is one smart kid when it comes to being where he should be on the field. He gets it.
And Pete, you're comfortable with Dorian Williams being the next pick, or do you want it to be McGuire?
I am elated with Dorian Williams. If he's still there.
Yeah, I was pretty sure you told me to move him up, but I was just confirming. Cool. Okay, this one we're waiting a while for.
Hayden Durham, nice.
So we're gonna.
Yeah, take out the tight ends.
Yeah, I was looking. Okay, so that pick happened, so we just moved him up. Oh, I didn't mean to take off Evans.
And the guy that is undervalued in that group that was there, Jim, is the Northwestern kid. Go down, Evan Hull. Very undervalued.
Okay.
And if you really want, I don't think he would be a fit with Buffalo, but if you want speed, the guy right below him, Keaton Mitchell, is pure speed. I mean, lightning.
I don't know what everybody else thinks, but with the way that the running back room has been built, we have Cook and Hines as like the two guys that are under contract each for more than a year.
Yeah.
And then we signed Damian Harris because we didn't have a bigger back. So if we draft somebody, they're probably going to be in the bigger set.
Right.
That would be my assumption. I think the 30 visits were the second guy from Texas, as well as Kendre Miller.
TCU.
Yep. Okay, so this draft looks like it's in good shape. We've got one more player queued. This one, we need to get those two picks done, and then we can queue them. Dorian Williams got sniped.
Oh.
On yours, Ben, were you? Oh yeah, he did get sniped. On yours, Ben, were you still looking at offensive line?
Possibly interior.
Interior?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to interior.
Would you like
Charlie Jones?
Yeah, you got Charlie Jones.
Okay.
Would you like a guard who could play tackle as well?
I like. Yeah,
would that be the
like
profile?
Interior linemen that can play multiple positions.
Jim, you could put my guy from Chattanooga on Ben's list.
Yeah,
McClendon
Curtis.
Yeah, nice long arms too.
Bingo. Somebody is going to get an absolute steal with this guy because he's not just got the long arms, can move around the tackle and guard spots. He is nasty. A character trait I absolutely love in offensive linemen.
See, so one of the things that I like, one of the reasons why I like doing this is you guys are talking about players that I have seen very little discussion about, like Ojomo or Jones. It's the first time I've really had any level of discussion, so I love being able to do an exercise like this. So I learned something about that in this one. In this draft, I think we had a pretty good discussion on the running backs. So I learned something about those. Like, you guys like those three guys at the top, and I haven't seen too many people talk about them. So that's appreciated. And then this one, this is Pete's.
They stole my guy.
Yeah. So what are you ready to do? That's
I
what
think
your
we
team
keep
looks
it
like.
as is. Yeah, I mean, I'll take a defensive line. Right now, I think it's just about getting that depth in the front seven.
Yeah, McGuire. McGuire would be a nice addition to the rotation.
I mean, I really think that despite the fact that they've invested quite a bit into some of those guys, like our second rounders and even at Oliver, it just hasn't hit enough for them to stay around. You got to try to get somebody else in there.
They flip those picks and people wouldn't be as upset.
Yep.
Because they got more production out of the second guy than they did the first guy.
It's funny with the Jomo too. I think Jim said he hadn't really watched or heard much about a Jomo. I think a Jomo was higher earlier in the process, and he's somebody that's kind of cooled off, like maybe even during the season.
Yeah. He started coming down once Texas started losing those games,
Yeah,
and not his fault.
no, it's funny kind of too with like some of those guys that get cooled off on. It's too much of a cool off.
Yeah.
Kind of like we're seeing with Gabe Davis. I really thought Gabe Davis was going to have 1,000 yards receiving and 12 touchdowns, and he didn't have that. But that doesn't mean that he's not a good. I mean, there's plenty of people who want us to trade Gabe Davis and add a receiver, and it's like, the whole point of adding another receiver is keeping Gabe Davis and adding a receiver.
Yep.
Same with Ed Oliver as well. People are ready to get rid of Ed Oliver. I don't want to pay Ed Oliver $10.7 million.
Yeah, but you have to remember, Pete, we're in the era of instant gratification. That's all they know. That's all they understand. So that's why you get such huge overreactions, no matter what sport you're watching.
Yep.
Right? Watch a basketball game tonight. I'll guarantee you one of the Milwaukee Bucks will be getting killed all over Twitter. One of the Miami Heat will be getting killed all over Twitter. And well, one of the two teams is going to win, but the guy gets killed.
Yeah, it's the point counterpoint.
Yep.
With those old SNL bits.
Media clickbait.
Somebody has to have a strong opinion one way, and somebody has to have a strong opinion the other way.
I really like the way that this one's turning out. Like, not my favorite player there, but the rest of that to me looks really good.
And I do. I like London.
I really like that draft. Even the center. That's a perfect draft so far for what he wanted. That's a perfect draft.
A couple of podcasters were basically saying Olu is gonna get like blown off the ball. Like they don't see any.
No, those guys are wrong.
He's not getting blown off the ball currently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Watch those games from Michigan. He's not getting blown off the ball. He's the one who's and he does what. Okay, the center has that snap to make, but that first step that a center has to make, along with the snap, he doesn't miss it. He does not miss it. Other guys are not as good at it because it's the snap and the step, snap and the snap.
Okay.
Okay, and when you break down what a center needs to do, that kid does it.
Yeah, good player.
So this one we are queued up with an interior offensive lineman, nose tackle, and safeties. I think that looks all right.
Yeah, I would drop the nose tackle off of that. We already have a Ojimo.
Yeah.
I like Broderick Martin.
I like him too. I just like Clark that much more though.
No worries. Okay, so that one looks good. This one, well, I guess this is the one that started the latest. So I'm like, wow, it's going so slow, but it started an hour after the other two. Like, I'm impressed that the second one caught up to the first one. Even though there was a 30-minute difference in when they started.
There's more humans. So
what are we looking at for the board on this one still? We lost some more players from it. Oh, not bad.
Not really. Well, ooh, bottom guy just went.
Got grabbed.
Olu.
Olu. What's the all player list? What's the general big board look like on this one?
Sewell on the fourth. That's McGuire.
Chase Brown still there? Wow.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll add him to the queue.
Did you guys get to see the story on the Brown brothers?
No.
No.
Oh, hell of a story, man. Their mom, single mom, had they had a baby sister. They're twins, mere twins, right? Baby sister, complications, all this other jazz. They ended up in over 15 different shelters.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran into a high school football coach from Florida up in Canada. Ended up going all the way down to Florida. Got noticed. Chase went to Western Michigan. Sydney came to Illinois, and they both got to Illinois. But hell of a story for those two.
Well,
And just so everybody knows, like I wasn't necessarily expecting to stay. Like we can stay on for like 15 more minutes. I'm hoping to get this pick for this draft, get the next 2 picks in, and then I don't usually wait around for the last pick of the draft. I queue up a couple players and then I go do stuff.
we should get Forsyth in there then.
In this one,
Yeah. Because I would take a future interior offensive lineman. I think there's people who think that our interior offensive line is set. I mean, Botker was somebody who was up and coming. He looked really nice, but that was a couple of years ago. We signed to Edwards. I'm not a huge fan of anybody after that. I don't think there's anybody keeping a rookie off the roster necessarily.
so I had a brainstorm like when I was doing some mocks. I think yesterday I started picking interior offensive linemen in round 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of, again, like I like doing these and saying like, what would I do? Because there's a possibility like in my head that if you take a guy like a Villa in round 2,
Mm-hmm.
you can kick Bates to compete with tackle with Brown. Right. I mean, that's the beauty of Bates, right? Bates is perfect if he is your 6th lineman.
Mm-hmm.
But Brown was such a turnstile last year that if Bates has to be that starting right tackle for a season, right? Because like we draft, let's say we draft a Villa in Freeland,
Mm-hmm.
for example, or a Villa in McClendon. Right? McClendon was the one that, do I have the right name? I want to make sure I have the right name.
Yeah, Chattanooga.
Yeah. So if we draft, let's say, a Villa in McClendon, you don't have to worry about McClendon this year, meaning he can be on the roster, but you've got Bates there. And then by the end of the year, you should know if you've got enough in McClendon to go into the following season with Bates and McClendon. Or do you need to add another to the room who might be an upgrade over both?
How confident are you that Bates can fill in at right tackle better than Brown?
Bates came into the league at tackle. Like he was a tackle and he could play all 5 positions on the line. And that was how he kept himself around.
But
So-
is he the 6th lineman? Is that why he's
Well, yeah, so
there,
we're
or is-
better off if Bates is lineman 6, not lineman 5. Because when Bates, like, was the reason that Bates looked so bad last year because he played next to Brown? Or was Bates bad because he was bad? It's difficult to know that.
or was Brown looking bad because Bates was next to him?
And that could be too. Brown didn't get any reps during camp. He was hurt all during camp.
Right.
Right.
He was
So-
injured. Yep.
So there's a lot of reasons to create excuses for Brown.
Right.
But the data doesn't suggest that Brown had a good year. There's no
Right.
way that the data can suggest that Brown was anything but bad. Right. Like, I think there may have only been 10 right tackles that had worse pass protection numbers than he did. So
It was rough. It was rough from Brown. It wasn't awesome from Bates, but Bates wasn't as
Bates wasn't. Yeah, Bates was in the average.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't subpar. But put him out at right tackle week after week. That's a different story, right?
I think that it could get far worse than Brown.
Yeah.
I mean,
Good.
Bates. The thing
so
is,
McGuire just got sniped, and we're on the clock in 2 picks.
okay, yeah, Bates is athletic enough. His problem is the length if you're putting him out with tackle.
If you put in a tackle, which means that Knox and whoever else has to come in and help chip with him.
Mm-hmm.
They just absolutely have to. Which, I mean, if you have to do that, you have to do that, right?
There
Because
were times where they chipped with Brown, and he still wouldn't pick up the guy.
Nope.
So do we like hard. Byron Young, Jalen Redmond, or a different defensive lineman in this all offensive draft so far?
I think we're good. Yeah, I think use those day 3 picks, get some depth on the defensive front.
You okay with Young?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I love how the computer takes a full minute every single time it picks.
Yeah, I guess they don't want to rush a person necessarily, but you should be able to kind of set. Actually, if you're picking next, you should be able to skip to your pick if you wanted to. That would speed it up.
Well, and I guess there's theoretically a trade could be brought in, theoretically, but
okay, yeah.
I mean, my opinion is that these rounds everything's queued up, right? Because we know what positions we have or haven't taken. So
this draft, this haul is, what do you have so far?
Offensive tackle, wide receiver, tight end.
Schoonmaker, I like it.
I would think we would go another defensive lineman here, whether it's an edge.
Yeah, look more edge there.
But this is Pete, so Pete.
Yeah, it's Pete's call. I'm just looking at
anybody on the front. I'm happy with. I think we had Fehoko. The San Jose kid we had, I think we talked to him. He's kind of a classic raw pass rusher. Take a flyer on, see what happens, and we can move him up.
I like being different. So, Greg, do you know anything about Fehoko?
Fehoko for San Jose State is another guy who is getting very big buzz at the end here. He's actually very good on the run. He sets a good edge. He needs to develop the plan of attack better for rushing the quarterback, dealing with the tackle, right?
Okay.
He's built for the NFL. He's
built for the NFL. Yes,
6'4", 263.
Yeah. He'll as well.
Yep.
So
he tested quite nicely.
After that edge, what would you queue up for this draft here? Linebacker, safety, running back, another offensive line, another defensive line.
I would put Forsyth at the top and expect nobody else to take him.
Yep. I agree with that one.
And I'll be happy to have him come in, help. I like grabbing more offensive linemen in general, simply because you're going to play at least 8 in a typical season. And you hope that you don't have to play the extra 3 very much. But especially with the Bills, I mean, we've seen our guys go down, our guys come in and out. We had to have our backup, our 4th tackle with his ankle taped up playing left tackle one game.
Yep. So one of my frustrations is it's not with how the Bills draft, it's with how they roster the 53. So there was a year, 2 years ago, we drafted Jack Anderson in the 7th round, right? And he was on the practice squad for a while. and then he got grabbed, I believe, was it by the Eagles? And he actually started a playoff game for the Eagles that year because the Eagles center got hurt.
He started for the Eagles against Tampa Bay.
Yep. So,
but that happens, right?
Well, right.
The way that it is set up is for that to actually happen. And Buffalo has gotten sniped on their practice squad guys. Yes, I agree.
That's a good sign, though.
But
that's a good sign.
But the point I was making is that he was better than the 10th offensive lineman in King. But we chose to keep Cody Ford over him because Cody Ford had experience and Anderson was a rookie. But Anderson outplayed Ford. There's no way that anybody can convince me otherwise. And we jettisoned Ford less than a year later.
Yeah, I hope that they've learned their lesson with Ford and with Zach Moss that, and maybe we'll see it with Brown this year, that you have to be showing improvement in that second year to be given total freedom and total confidence in that third. That's my hesitation with Brown. It doesn't sound like it, but I love Spencer Brown, especially after the whistle. Guys are mixing it up. Spencer Brown is the first guy in there. He's a mean big man, and I like that a lot. I can't separate what I see when the plays are going and you see him getting beat immediately.
I'd like to see him healthy again. If he can't stay healthy, then that's an issue. But
if he can't stay healthy, I think the hard thing for me too is he played the whole season. And so, yes, even though he wasn't healthy in the start of the year, I still want to see more.
I agree.
Yep.
If you want,
I guess you don't want to have to fall back on the injury.
If you want to struggle with the staying healthy thing, I've gone through it for 7 straight years with one Tyron Smith.
Yeah. What a great player. What a great player.
Like when he's healthy, had he been healthy these last 7 years, I don't care what any San Francisco Niner says, Tyron Smith will be rated ahead of Trent Williams. He would be. Because I've heard from guys who said getting touched by him or you hitting him when he's anchored, it is an absolute brick wall. You aren't moving him. You're done.
He was what a great draft pick. What a great player. I mean, that and Martin and
Travis Frederick.
It was Frederick. And it was so funny because everybody was so mad when they drafted Frederick. And I'm sitting
not me,
going,
not me.
Why? That's like Tippmann this year. People think he's not the top interior offensive lineman. I think he can't get past like the Giants.
Did you just start another draft?
So there was, because I was signed up for one at 942. So there was you sign up for these ahead of time. And I was signed up for this one too. This one will put Osiris Torrance to Buffalo in round 1 if I don't queue anybody up. But the ones that start past 9 o'clock, it's an entirely queued draft. I just try to make sure rounds 1 and 2 are right, then let the simulator go.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
No worries there. But when they drafted Zach Martin, a lot of them were all up in arms. Me being a Notre Dame guy, shut the hell up. He's had fewer holding penalties than anybody. Has given up only 6 sacks in his career.
He's probably played more seasons than he's had penalties and sacks.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Mm-hmm. And the same thing was with Frederick when they drafted him. Everybody, and I'm going, have you not watched him? Have you not watched him? He moves people. That's why Ezekiel Elliott's first few years were so successful. Mm-hmm. Elliott dropped off when it was the next Wisconsin center, who we have now, Tyler Biotish, who is not a people mover. He's technically sound. He's decent, but he's no Travis Frederick. Mm-hmm. And that's why one of the things that I've been telling, if we added picks, because we only got 1 in each round, and a guy like Ricky Stromberg from Arkansas is there, or Juice Scruggs from Penn State is sitting there later on, I'm taking them this year because those 2 centers move people.
Mm-hmm.
Scruggs, huh? I'll have to look him up.
Juice Scruggs, Penn State.
Yeah, I know the name. I know where, but I haven't really looked into him that much.
Yeah.
Penn State has some interesting late round guys.
Strange. Yeah, they got a few.
Who's the wide receiver? I want to say
Parker Washington.
I was going to say Tinsley.
Or Tinsley. Yeah,
I was
Tinsley.
going to say Tinsley. I was watching Strange, and Tinsley made some catches, and I watched some more of him. He's not fast. He's not fleet of foot, but
Nope.
he's nice, sound, technical guy, good hands.
As I was saying to Jim earlier tonight, the other North Carolina wide receiver better get consideration, Mr. Antoine Green, because if you like Josh Downs, watch Antoine Green.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been other podcasts that have said the same thing.
Yep.
Right. Like, yeah. So, hey, I want to pivot the conversation for a second. So I have a couple questions for you guys. As you're looking at this user interface and how this 32 people picking for 32 teams works, what do you like? What needs to be better? What needs to be changed?
I like their interface once you learn it. It's easy to use once you learn. Like the other night, right? That was my first one. Okay, that's where I go for a trade. Okay, boom, that's fine. Oh, my queue, that's good. So, I mean, the interface that they're using, I like. This is pretty straightforward. It doesn't confuse the hell out of you, right?
Okay.
So that's one thing that you want to keep it. You want to keep it so that it's, it makes sense. Right?
Okay.
Which this one does. And it gives you your option of keeping just your guys in your queue, going back to who you've picked. Those things are good. That I like.
Yeah, I like that. I like that feed as well. For me, it's always the big board stuff, especially if it's a place where you can make an account and make your own big board and put it on there.
Yeah.
That's very convenient when you're doing something like this. Like we were looking for Forsyth, and it took a minute.
Yeah, so
he wasn't listed even as what we thought he should be.
They do have a way to make a board, right?
Yeah.
So let me see if I can find it.
So I like being able to pick different boards, like consensus, pulled from different whatever sites, and I like that type of thing.
And then adding your own board. If
it depends on how crazy you want to get with it too, because some people want to like share their mock drafts and share their boards, and then you would be able to use someone like I could use Greg's board or Jim's board or Ben's board.
So because for Draft Fanatics, this was in the design. It was just too buggy to use this year, right? There was no way I was going to let other people see it, right? So my developers initially told me that there's no way they could load a spreadsheet to override the board because Draft Fanatics, every team has its own board.
Right.
And that was how they were envisioning. This was going to use the team board, and you could just pick when the player came up. That was how they were envisioning it. And after I saw how Walk the Mock worked, I was like, in order to be competitive, we have to have a way to override those boards.
Yes.
But that's a lot more work for my developers.
Yes. And I think that even if it's just one board from one place, to be able to look at a different, not what everybody's picking, because sometimes it was like, I know somebody was picked in the fifth or sixth round for the Bills, and they were popping up as one of the top choices starting in the third. And if you're somebody, especially, if you're thinking about, a lot of people aren't watching a bunch of film, they're, reading scouting reports and picking people that they like. But the cool thing about the Draft Fanatics and what you thought of with that, Jim, is you can look at the boards that you're already consuming and look at what people are picking. I think of a couple of sites where their boards don't change, and I see somebody picking Tippmann at 91 every time. And it's like, Tippmann's not going to be there at 91, even though every single person is picking Tippmann at 91, and other people and other teams are picking him in the 70s or whatever else. He's not moving from that spot in that mock simulator for the entire draft season.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pete brought up a good point. Is like I haven't even made my board this year, but if you could start out with like the consensus board, at least it helps me start learning the names early in the season to start. Okay, I want this guy up higher, lower, whatever. It gives you a starting point to learn the 300 players that you're going to need to know.
Well, the easiest starting point for anybody is always going to be the Reese's Senior Bowl 300 list. That's the easiest starting point because they generally will not deviate from it. They'll every once in a while a few, but they hate deviating from that 300.
Yeah, so like Dean's list started at a certain number because I had Dean's board in September or October. And like when Dean was testing Draft Fanatics in December, he was using his board from September.
Right.
And so Dean has a board, but the board doesn't have that many players in it. Right. In September, it wasn't that big.
Right.
Then the board balloons. So there's a period in January where that board had like 700 people on it. And then it gets pared down once you start realizing like where the rankings are. And on Dean's board right now, there's a list of 400 and a list of 500. There's like 400 draftables, and then there were 500 more that were eligible but not considered to be draftable.
Right.
If that makes sense. So I definitely get the board thing. Is there anything else as you look at this that you say, I wish it did this versus that? I mean, their filter and the Draft Fanatics filter are actually similar. You can look for more than one position at the same time. I think this one, there were some issues with how things highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
There were some issues like Forsyth, like what was his position assigned a certain way. But ultimately, unless you can assign two positions to a player, I don't know that problem goes away because the author of the board has to decide, is he a tackle or is he an interior line?
See, that's becoming harder again with the safety position, the corners, and offensive linemen especially. Because
go ahead, Greg. Sorry.
Well, just because the fact that people will move some guys inside that other people are still keeping on tackle. So it's better to be general. Go defensive back, go offensive line. Now, in their subcategory, right, do you have the sub at all, Jim?
So that was in my design document to be able to say, like, there's a cornerback and then there's a nickel cornerback. There's linebacker and there's off-ball linebacker.
Like I'm just thinking going guard center, guard tackle, right, as a sub.
Okay, got it.
Keep it general to
and I was saying like every position can have a sub.
Yeah.
Right. For a corner, it could be a nickel corner.
Yep.
And then for a linebacker, it could be off-ball linebacker versus I don't know necessarily what to call the other one.
What if
Will, you've got your off ball, you've got your will.
Is a will and an off ball the same thing?
Not necessarily. Because it goes back to the old days of 3, right?
Yeah. Because like I've seen it on Otto's board. So there's a gentleman on the Bills Mafia where he had like he would rate linebackers as inside, middle, outside, weak side, and he would have like 4 sub ratings.
That's right.
Right. And I was going to do something similar.
But that's a little harder now to do because so many teams are only using the 2 in their sets, right?
And it still comes down to if I'm consuming somebody else's board. And ultimately for this, right, I don't have my own board. I am taking somebody else's board and I'm loading it into my site.
Yeah. So
it doesn't matter whose board I use. I'm going to be at whatever their interpretation of the positions were. And that's okay. 90% of the players are correct.
Sure, but you can also as needed correct a guy. You can correct his position. You can make the switch. Like somebody here should have put Forsyth in as
center,
interior offensive lineman instead of tackle, right?
Here's what I'm wondering. So we're talking about like offensive line. What if any offensive line is loaded into the system as an offensive lineman?
Yeah.
And when you select that player, you can pick a position for like almost like a heat map. So everybody who picks that player, you can click center, you can click interior offensive line, you can click tackle, and it's almost like a heat thing. And
Yep.
so it will correct itself. The same thing with wide receiver. People are clicking for slot, balanced, boundary, whatever else you want to put in there, and then the dot just goes wherever that's getting clicked. If everybody clicks as somebody as a slot wide receiver, it'll be all the way over to the end.
Yep.
Cool thought.
And then it corrects itself, and you can even be really general and say defensive line.
Which a lot of places already say defensive line, right?
Right. And then people will click and they can say they think somebody's a nose or a 3 or a 5 or a 6, a 9, whatever else. But if it's like that, and I don't know if you would want it to be only if somebody picked the player or if it's just they can do it as they go. They could go into the big board and do it. But
that's why I like discussions like this. I wouldn't have thought of that idea without you.
That's a great idea.
I kind of like that. I am going to take that idea where you pick a player, and similar to how this site, they have an average draft position here.
Yep.
So this is actually kind of cool that you could have them list their board by the average draft position, and it will flip the rankings.
Yep.
It's actually you can see even though those wide receivers are 50 apart, their average draft position is only 3 apart.
Yep.
So you could do something like that with a player where when somebody picks them and they flag the position, 75% of people are saying he's a tackle and 25% are saying he's a guard.
Yeah. And the same thing that would solve a lot with the safeties, because really some people look at safety and they don't know if they're a box safety, if they're deep safety, if they're a safety that can do some man.
Yep.
Or you can come up with something outside the box and take Darnell Washington and turn him into a left tackle.
Well, I would say too about Darnell Washington.
You laugh, but that's happened in the Bills' history.
My other worry with yes, I remember who. My other worry with Washington, just projecting him, is it is very different when you're trying to block people in the SEC or at the Senior Bowl or wherever else. At All-Star game, wherever the bag that looks really impressive. It's very different when you're trying to block an NFL veteran. And I know that he is a good blocker, but I think that people are trying to say, well, he's going to come in and block really well in his first season, so that's kind of a thing. But it's really hard to block NFL vets for sure.
He will do fine as a run blocker to begin with. His run blocking is absolutely superb.
Very nice, yeah.
But in pass pro, yes, he's going to get taught a lesson or two. That's going to happen. And the same thing happens on the other side of the equation. I don't care what anybody says. Will Anderson is going to find out what getting pancaked means.
It's a tough thing. I think of a couple of years ago when we had the 4 tackles go really early. Andrew Thomas was my top tackle, and he struggled at first.
Absolutely. And then last year too, the debate at the tackle position was between Iquanu and Evan Neal, and all these people were saying Evan Neal. I said he's going to struggle like you won't believe at this next level. Iquanu will not. And they're going, well, why are you saying that? Because Iquanu technically is better, his size proportioned properly, and Evan Neal at 6'8" did exactly what most of these really big tackles do. He got his body over top of his feet way too much. It was easy to see. But yet that whole crowd out there was Evan Neal. No.
And you wonder too with the media stuff, it's really hard to decipher. Do people watch this person and like them, or do they hear good things about them and move them up their board?
Oh, it's the pipeline. The media pipeline, especially for the guys at Alabama. Right? I mean, that's an immediate media pipeline because everybody sees Alabama playing for national championships. Now the pipeline's starting to be out of Athens instead of just Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
Right. And they play into it because it's easy for them. It becomes easy. They don't have to work that way. They don't have to work.
There's no way everybody likes all these quarterbacks every year.
Yeah.
Well, and you would be like another example is even media. I'll even say podcasters are part of the media, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
like within Bill's Mafia, like Cover One, I love their content. Everybody at Cover One, in my opinion, is convinced Bill's Mafia that Darnell Wright is a first-round tackle, okay, and is one of the top tackles in the draft, like one of the top 3 tackles, assuming that Skoronski is a interior lineman.
Because
Wright would be top 4. So even then, Wright would be top 4, right?
Yeah,
Skoronski's a tackle.
but what happened, Jim?
Hold on. But my point is that if you go outside of Bill's Mafia, okay, and you listen to other podcasters, there are podcasters that don't even have Wright inside their top 50.
That's right.
Right? They are able to point out there are flaws. They're concerned about this. He might be coming in with a certain floor, but he may not even reach his floor, they said.
No.
Right? So, but meaning that if you get outside and you just listen to what other analysts are saying about the player, it's not a slam dunk.
He's the perfect media. He's the perfect media pick that we're talking about right now for the simple fact he has 10 snaps versus the guy that everybody talks about at edge. 10.
Yep.
It was 10 snaps against Will Anderson Jr., and he handled him for 10 snaps. But if you're going to base jumping a guy up this high off 10 snaps, you're not doing your job. You're not doing your job.
Right.
So continue on that, Greg. What's your take on Wright?
For me, Darnell Wright has his pass pro, and I don't care whether you put him at left or right. His pass pro is good. His run blocking leaves a lot to be desired.
Even on the right side?
On the right side, he's better at it. On the left side, in run blocking, no thank you.
Okay.
Right? But the other flaws that Wright has is the same typical flaws that you see with so many offensive linemen.
Bend.
It's hands. The hands, right? They're not always where they want to be. You want them to be. His pad level is, again, something else that's a little less than desirable at all times. That can happen, but that's coachable. That stuff's coachable, right? But there are flaws there.
Yeah, so
How's his knees?
Yeah, so Ben, if you want a podcast reference, there is a podcast that I really like called the NFL Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
One of the guys on it is from CBS, and the other one is from PFF.
But Connor has always been a part of PFF as well. He's always been a part of.
Okay, so he's part of PFF, and then he's also doubling as CBS. Okay,
or NBC this year.
Okay, he's on one of the networks and PFF.
Yeah.
So they did a top 150 player episode. So find the episode where they compared their top 150.
It was this week.
Yeah, and I mean it was really good. Those two guys are really good. Like any of their content is just great stuff. They have a lot of chemistry with each other. But there were 2 or 3 things that I'll point out. One was they had a 25 spot difference on Jack Campbell.
Yep.
One of them had Jack Campbell in the top 25. The other one had him at player 50. Okay.
Yep.
Darnell Wright was in the top 50. He was in, I believe, in the top 25 on one, and he was like player 51 on the other board.
Yep.
Like the range. Now, but that also could say, like, okay, so what is the scoring difference between player 25 and 51? It's relatively narrow. Right. But there's still, that was still where they chose to rank him, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then there was another one, and I think the guard's name was Bradford, and it was
Anthony Bradford, LSU.
Yeah. So Greg and I were talking about that as as we started, because he and I were the first 2 in here. So Bradford was in the top 100 on one and not even in the top 150 on the other.
Yeah.
Like, for example, so they were able, and they'll talk about why one likes them versus the other. But to me, this is how I chose to design Draft Fanatics.
Yeah.
I wanted 32 teams with 32 different boards, right? Because it's that volatility that creates value. That's where somebody says, well, there's no way that player is going to be there in round 5. Well, but if he's not high on 7 teams' boards that needs that position,
Right.
boom, that's where the volatility comes from.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't, right? Because not every team's going to need a center, for example, or not every team needs a running back or whatever, right? So that was how I chose to design Draft Fanatics. And there's a gentleman, Brock didn't join us tonight, but Greg knows Brock. Brock sent me a really nice message a couple days ago. He's like, you've got something really good with Draft Fanatics, because he says every single time I come in, it's different.
Mhm.
And that was the other goal, is I wanted a different experience, right? For the last 3 weeks, anybody that's using PFN is showing the same mock draft to Bills Mafia.
Yeah.
Mozzie Smith in round 2, Darnell Wright in round 1.
It doesn't change. It does not change.
Right, because you're limited to whatever their player boards are. And Mozzie Smith is going in round 1 on Walk the Mock. I see Mozzie Smith going round 1 to the Saints and to the Chiefs frequently when we're in here.
And if you break that position down for me, Jalen Carter was number 1 at DT, right? There's no arguments there. Mozzie as the nose tackle. Sorry, I'm going to take the other Big Ten.
You want Benton.
I want
I know
Benton.
you like Benton.
I want
I took
Benton
him
because
first in this one.
Keanu Benton finishes.
Benton's
He's
further
finished.
along.
Yep,
Benton's further along for sure.
he's a finisher. I want, and he still has a ceiling.
Yes. Hmm.
Yep.
I would take Mozzie, but I know exactly why anybody would say Benton, because he's further along, and sometimes you stay further along.
Yep.
Because
I have to put in more work to get Mozzie where Mozzie should be.
Mhm. And where Benton is good, very good.
Yep.
And one of the things that like as I'm looking at like Walk the Mock, right? One of the things I want to know is, what are my stats when I'm picking against Greg? Right? Because like I can tell you, Greg, the person who picks for the Cowboys, I don't know. The Cowboys, oh, they're being machine picked, but there
Okay.
tends to be it's the same person I'm always picking against.
Mhm.
I can pretty much predict who that person's picking. Now, there is a person who picks for New England, and I don't know if they're in here.
Can you see who is picking for these teams?
Yeah, it's this column right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, in that
So,
left-hand
Oh, I
side.
see it. Yep, I see it
Yeah.
now.
like, there's certain tendencies. I noticed that.
Yeah.
Well, meaning that I don't want anybody that says Buffalo, like, if everybody sees that I always pick for Buffalo, I have tendencies. I draft a lot of linemen. You guys drafted way more non-linemen than I do. It doesn't matter what side of the ball. I trade down a lot and I draft a lot of linemen. That's just what I do, right? Well, people need to have, like, there needs to be some way to, like, collect stats that if everybody for Bills Mafia selects a defensive tackle, that's got to be a team need. But if you look, defensive tackle is not a team need. Neither is tight end.
Again, that becomes subjective to all these sites, right? Like,
Correct.
Right.
Except Draft Fanatics, because we don't. It's the users are putting the players there.
so that's the thing. People who are going to use Draft Fanatics are going to be more like people like myself and Pete, because we already have our team needs. We don't need somebody telling us what the team needs are, right?
Right.
So that part, I don't care what they think the team needs. And this is why I've been drafting a running back to the Dallas Cowboys. I don't care.
Mhm.
Right.
I want that speed in the backfield. I want another weapon for Prescott. That's all I heard when we lost to the Niners and the games the Cowboys lost. Dak needs weapon. Dak needs weapon.
But
Well, I'm giving you a weapon.
right, but because a simulator like this, if nobody picks for Buffalo, this simulator is going to assign a cornerback in a mock draft to Buffalo.
Yep.
Right?
Because of the way they got it.
The likelihood Buffalo drafts a corner this year, even though we brought in a couple for 30 digits, is really low. Like, that's the deepest position on the team that's not quarterback.
And you've got more than You got more than 3 of them under
We've got-
contract.
we've
4 under
got
contract
4.
through next year at least, right?
Yeah, so White is on a long-term deal.
Yeah.
We drafted 2 rookies last year.
Last year, who were on their rookie deals,
Dane Jackson is on a 1-year tender.
Johnson.
and Johnson.
And then
Yeah.
Teron Johnson is under a multi-year deal.
It's
we
like
draft- if
4
we
under
draft-
multi-year and one.
It would
One
not
attendant.
surprise me to see Buffalo draft a slot corner
Yeah.
or somebody that
could
could play the slot, because when there were 2 games that Johnson got hurt, and the drop off when he was not on the field was huge.
But again, that also goes to the fact that there's that general rule of thumb out there, Jim.
You can never have too many corners.
You draft corner every year. You draft offensive line every year, right?
If we
Now-
draft a corner, we've just got to find room. We're probably going to do one of those trades for a late round pick at the end of August or something. Especially now that you can keep guys all the way through the summer. Bean is going to take advantage of that and make some trades during that preseason weeks, because that's just what he does to get some late round picks to move around.
Well, this is going to be fun because there's only one cut this year, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
One mass cut.
and there's one extra offensive lineman I think you get to put on your roster too. Am I wrong?
No,
They
you
go
got
up to 54.
And an extra QB.
the third QB is back.
Yeah.
So it's still 53, and you dress your 46, but in your 53, you can have your third quarterback
Yep.
and the extra offensive lineman.
So
But there
there's
was never a
definitely room.
max on the offensive line. There was only a minimum, wasn't there?
No,
I
no.
think
Like you had to
definitely
have a
was
minimum in order to dress 46. You needed to dress at least 8 offensive linemen. If you only dress 7 offensive linemen, you could only dress 44. Wasn't that what the rule was?
That goes back a while. That switched a while back. They switched the offensive line thing a while back.
Okay.
And if you guys thought you had it rough, try 2020 for my beloved Cowboys. Guess how many offensive linemen we started that year?
How many?
14.
Oh,
Wow.
you have 14 offensive linemen hanging out, right?
Well, we had to bring guys in. We were bringing guys in off the scrap heap, right? We went to a 4th right tackle, a 3rd left tackle. Zach got hurt for a few games. It was just blah, 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 blah.
14. Yeah.
Well, and in each of like the last 3 Super Bowls, a team was starting, at least one team was starting at least 2 backup offensive linemen.
Wow,
Yep.
really?
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
that's again like
So I believe last year it was the Chiefs were starting 2 backup offensive linemen last year,
yep.
and they won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
The previous year, the Bengals were starting 2 backup offensive linemen against the Rams.
Yep.
The previous year, Kansas City again was starting
Backup
offensive linemen. And what makes it even funnier is that the backup offensive lineman and then the backup offensive lineman 2 years later were completely different offensive lines.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, I don't feel bad about taking multiple offensive linemen.
no.
It's just the attrition of a season, right? And if they when we go to 18, and we're going to 18. They're not stopping at 17 games. It's going to 18.
When?
Then we get 2 different bye weeks coming too.
Yeah, that would be. I think I was talking to Jim, maybe somebody else, about you really kind of need to build in a bye week before the playoffs start. Let teams get a little healthier. Especially, I mean, you want the starters to be on the field and to be healthy. And I know guys will get out there and go and tough it out, but I'd rather see everybody get a week off, get fresh.
And
You
makes
know,
a
have that
it
extra
wasn't
week.
me you were talking about that with, but that actually makes a lot of sense.
Have
Because
that
if
extra
you
week.
do have that bye built in when Bills Bengals happen.
That was what I was talking about it for. Yeah. But also, everybody would know their opponent and get a bye week to prepare for exactly who they're going to play. And you'd get sort of that college bowl game effect where your coaching would really make a difference.
But
But
I
if
do
they-
think
if they
there's
go
a
to that-
ratings hit with that bye week. And here's what I mean. So, like, right when the playoffs start, like, there's not a lot else on TV yet.
Mhm.
Right? Like, that's you've got like that weekend that's right after New Year's that you're playing the playoffs in.
But if you
That's
give
when
that
you
week
make your
up,
money, you're going to make more money then than you will on Valentine's Day.
well, yeah, but if you give that week up and give it to the college football playoff, because that's what the national championship would come right after that weekend is the championship game. Take that week off. Everybody gets that time to prepare for their opponent, et cetera, and you could get rid of the asinine 2 weeks between the AFC, NFC, and the Super Bowl. There's no need for the 2 weeks between.
Yeah.
None.
You know, and then Pete, another reason why your idea is effective is that if coaches need to be interviewed and there's a bye week, the coaches can be interviewed.
Mm-hmm. And they could put the end of year awards in that week if they wanted. If they're looking for TV time, just
NFL
make that
honors.
the time you do your Coach of the Year, MVP, everything else.
Yeah, there's
Mhm.
lots of ways to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when they go to the 18th game, they're going to have to.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to see it. Especially, after Damar Hamlin's incident, players say and watching Tua this year. I mean, I'm never going to forget watching Tua with that concussion that he had.
Which one?
The one that was supposedly the first one. That was not the first one.
And then come back and get concussed again 4 days later.
That was the one, yeah. I mean, I think that player safety really, because these guys will go, and they have no reason to, and most of them have to, because you can't say, Coach, I'm the 48th guy on the roster, and I'm too hurt to play. That's a very hard predicament to put players in. And I think with Tua, it's from what it sounds like, he was kind of part and party to saying I'm okay.
Because it was drilled into him and family-wise. I mean, it was drilled. There's the thing with Tua, and he talked about his relationship with McDaniel. This is the first time I've had anybody in football who was not yelling and screaming in my face. He talked to me like he with Saban. I mean, Saban would get in his face and get blah, 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 right. Mm-hmm. We all know Saban can explode and all that nonsense. He said, "This is the first time in my football life because I always had my dad on my ass. I always had the family pressure from brothers, the whole shebang." And he said, "This is the first guy that I've ever been able to just sit down and talk with, not at." He's in love with McDaniel. I mean, he's treated like a human being. So,
I mean, and you're the quarterback and you're that coach's guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. And especially when you talk about NFL players, they are cut from a very different cloth as far as what they will endure.
NFL players and NHL players.
Yeah. I mean, they just
totally different cloth.
You are putting your body through something hard every day. And so
very hard.
It's hard to say to somebody, no, this is enough.
And when supply and demand tells you that if you don't step up, somebody else will.
Somebody else will. And somebody is going to go after your job every single year. That's part of being a professional, right?
Yep.
And when we do get the 18th game, it is going to be a full 53-man roster all 18 weeks. No more 46. You're done.
Yep. So if I was in the NFLPA, that would be the conversation I would have surrounding this stuff, is to say, you know what, if you want these extra games, give us some mandatory time off.
Yeah. And well, it's the extra bye week that's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a win-win for the league because you're extending the season without really hurting the product.
But what I want to schedule for Philadelphia this year, I want them to go through what the Cowboys get since they brought in Thursday night football. Not just once, because we got Thanksgiving every year, but they give it to us twice. Short prep twice. Really? Thanks a lot.
Buffalo had at least two Thursdays.
Buffalo's had a lot of Thursdays the last few seasons.
Because we did Thanksgiving, and then we had immediately the week after, right? So we did
at least you
back Thursday.
That gives you the 1 week.
And then
what happened to the Cowboys is they had their short week before Thanksgiving, and then they ended up with the second last week against Tennessee on another short week.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
I'm trying to think. So I guess the opening game is a Thursday, but again, you have all off season to get ready. So Buffalo had at least 3 Thursdays last year.
Yeah. But the opening game, you got 10 days off.
Right. No, I get it.
What
But
I'm
we had
saying
3
is we got,
Thursdays, because you were saying Dallas had 2, and I'm like, Buffalo had at least 2.
Yeah.
But
ours are
2 of them
ours were the
had
short weeks.
Thursdays with a longer.
Ours were the short weeks because we played Sunday and had to do it again Thursday. Played
Right.
Sunday, had to do it again Thursday. Okay, give that to the Eagles then. Thank you very much. Let's see how they do with it.
Yeah.
So what's Dallas's record on the short week? Do you know?
Oh, they did.
It's
They
average.
they beat Tennessee, but the Thanksgiving Day games are a nightmare. I would love to be out of that club for 10 years. I would love to.
Well, no, I mean, I get the game, putting a game plan together for the short week, but I'm curious if there is a statistical, if there's a statistical data point that a team that continually plays on only 3 days is doing less than their collective winning percentage over the same period of time. Like if Dallas's winning percentage, let's say over the last 20 years was, let's say 55%, but their winning percentage on Thursdays over that same time period was only 45%. That statistical difference is enough to say that's not good.
Okay, for the Cowboys overall, it's because they've done it since the 60s. It's 31 wins, 22 losses, 1 tie. But there's been a lot more of those losses.
So it's about a 60% winning percentage, I think.
Yeah, but in the old days, I mean, it used to be a given. The Cowboys were beating the living daylights out of whoever came to town on Thanksgiving Day. I mean, you could chalk up the W, right? But it's not that way anymore. And the other problem has been is the injuries incurred on a Thanksgiving Day game have impacted them come playoff time, right? So
yeah, and that's another good point. Is that are the injuries in those games higher? Right, because even the players playing on 3 days rest. Right.
And then they made it do it. Then they did it to us again, though. That's the part that you can't do that to us twice. If you're going to give us the second Thursday game, it better be the Thanksgiving and the following Thursday where we get the full week of prep.
So
right?
There was data that came out when Rex Ryan was Buffalo's coach, or no, Doug Marrone, when Doug Marrone was Buffalo's coach, that basically they were measuring how much rest do the Bills' opponents have relative to Buffalo. And Buffalo was always at the low end of that. And it was season in, season out. And basically Doug Marrone's pointing out to the league, like, the number one thing you can do is give a team more rest. And you're all like, we would always play, like New England would play Thursday, and then they would play Buffalo the following week. So basically we're playing New England on 11 days rest. And that was happening over and over again, season after season. And he's like, you're creating a competitive disadvantage.
Do you remember the other teams on the bottom of that list, Jim?
No.
Because I would almost be willing to bet it was Buffalo, San Francisco, Dallas, and the Raiders who would be on the bottom of that list. Just the way the schedules work out almost every year.
Well, right. So last year, the script got flipped because Buffalo was actually like second or third in the league. It had the most rest relative to its opponents last year.
Yeah.
Right. So the league is picking which teams they want to give the rest to. That's basically what it comes down to, right? So
yeah. But if anybody says there isn't bias in the league office, they don't know what they're talking about. Because they will do anything under the sun for the Giants, the Steelers, and the Packers in that order. They will do anything for those 3 franchises.
Is that because of the owners? Because it's not the market. New York market, yes, but
it's the relationship between those franchises and the league office.
Well, New York Giants got that taunting rule a couple of years ago. That was all spurred by their owner.
And the younger Mara also got the 6-game suspension for Elliott. He was the one who got Elliott suspended for 6 games. I've never ever seen Jerry more upset. He was ready to go and kill him. I mean, he was hot, red hot, because the league investigator said that's not worthy of a suspension, and it was a woman who did the investigating, who talked to the person to talk to the woman that Elliott was supposedly involved with at the dispute, etc.
Mhm.
This is not worth a suspension. Bang, 6 games. What? I mean, and then they found out the push came from Mara.
Mhm.
That's dirty pool.
I mean, it's certainly a pretty easy conflict to notice.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Well, if we want to, we can call this a day. We have been online for almost 4 hours, Greg.
You know.
How's the queue doing? You could put
So
Ramirez in
every
there.
single draft is at the same pick, if you could believe this.
Wow.
We're waiting for 628. We're waiting for 628. And we're waiting for 628, even though the draft started an hour apart. And I knew we would get here because this happens every time when
Well,
you have people picking.
versus
And
the
I
computer.
mean, that's almost 60 picks. Between 5-2 and 628 is like 50 to 60 1-minute selection.
Is
Mhm.
that because the computer always does 1 minute and one of the drafts is predominantly computer?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this first one, there's only like 5 or 10 of us picking. The second one, there's actually only like 5 teams that are being auto picked. So this one caught up to the
Yeah.
other one.
Mhm.
And then this one started an hour later, and it looks like about half the teams have somebody picking for it.
See, like when you do your auto drafts at Yahoo or whatever, ESPN for football and stuff, the computer is slow on that first one, but then it nails those picks, bang, bang,
Right.
bang afterwards, right? In this one, they don't have that speed put into it.
And it's because theoretically somebody could be trying to trade with the computer
Yeah.
to get that pick. But I'm noticing how few trades happen after 2 rounds. So my opinion is after 2 rounds, it can speed up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
cool.
Now this
Well,
isn't your
No, I'm designing so
you're in the process. Okay.
the draft fanatics will have this functionality next year.
So that's part of the reason why we were doing these exercises,
Sure.
is so that you can take what Walk the Mock does and incorporate it for NFL draft fanatics.
We haven't seen a trade.
Oh no, Foresight just got taken.
He just did. Yep.
Oh
So-
no. Can we stick Ramirez in that queue? I would take him. I know I already took an edge, but I'm just gonna put players in there. Richards is still there. Oh, he doesn't have to go to the top though.
Yeah.
Richards probably belongs at the top.
Yeah, Richards.
Already
I
taken.
would agree with you there, Pete. Richards would be your first guy, right?
Yeah, especially with what I've already taken. If we're trying
what
to
you've
be,
taken,
if we're
etc.
trying to be intellectually honest, and not
Oh,
just take a
cut
bunch of
that
guys
out.
that you couldn't actually fit on the roster.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I like is that even if you were to have the same GMs and same computers, repeat this draft tomorrow, you wouldn't get the same thing.
Oh,
No.
correct. And that's my entire vision
I like
of
that.
why I designed a simulator, why I think like Greg and I have been doing Greg's even been doing the person to person against person mock drafts longer than me. But for the last 2 years, once I got involved, there's an event called Draft-A-Palooza, which we did last weekend. Once I saw the volatility of an event like that, I said there has to be a simulator that can mimic this, even if you're just going in with a single user. So to give you an idea, Ben, so I had Dean's board, right?
Yeah.
So I had to pick for the Bills and the Rams. And the Rams have a lot of 7th, 6th, and 7th round picks. Like I think I had 6 picks in the final 2 rounds, something like that.
Yeah, you had 6 picks for the Rams and then 6 and
Yep.
7.
So in the final 2 rounds, Ben, I was grabbing people on Dean's board between 110 and 150. Right? But
And we're
that
talking
tells
well
you
into the 200s.
the other 15 people were able to build a board where their player 110 was Dean's 200. And 15 different people had boards like that.
Yeah.
And that goes to show you, like, that's why when teams are drafting and you say, well, how could that team have not valued that player that high? They just had somebody valued higher.
Right.
Right. It's
all the subjectivity, and that's why I said earlier, what we all think and do in this is different from what an NFL team will do.
well,
Period.
yeah, and the other thing is that what a mock draft, what all the other mock draft simulators make everybody think is that one board is the player ranking.
Yeah.
And
The
it
algorithms.
conditions the brain to think that. But as
Yep.
soon as you put 32, and even with Draftapalooza, we're only doing 16 boards because each person is picking for 2 teams.
Yeah.
We're only doing 16 boards, and the volatility you get with 16 boards is huge. There were people that were grabbing a player in the 3rd round, and on Dean's board, he was at like player 250 or 300.
Mhm.
So now there were players that were on nobody, like they weren't on the simulator, right? That we were using on the weekend. Okay. So here's one other thing that you need to be able to do next year. You need to be able to add the HBCU kids, historically black colleges and universities.
I can add those players right now. If somebody
Yep.
gives me a list,
Exactly.
adding the players is easy.
Yeah. Yeah, the HBCU guys though, and make sure that you don't forget about the non-power, the smaller,
Right.
the lower end of Division I, like Chattanooga, right? Like
So ultimately loading the players is
that's
easy.
part's easy. Yeah,
Loading the players is easy. Building the spreadsheet that has the players on it,
is not.
that's where the challenge comes.
Yeah.
But I can add players at any time.
Yeah. So what I've got what I always do before the next season, Jim, because these guys are really good at it. It's NFLDraftBuzz.com.
Yep.
And all you do is go to their 2024 overall rankings because they've already got how many do they have in there this year? It's 504 for 2024. They have 504 guys already. So you can do your 2024 load right off from them.
Thank
That's
you.
500 guys, right? And then the next thing after the Draft Buzz and 504 are there, the next thing you guys get the developers to look for is the invitations to the Senior Bowl. And they come out early, right? They get
My developers don't load the players. I do.
Yeah. Okay. You're loading it.
Right. I have an admin panel. It's a relatively simple process.
Yeah, okay.
My sheet is
So what it
formatted.
does, what the Senior Bowl does, though, what that Senior Bowl does, those 300 names, that gives you a much better. It gives you the second set of rankings immediately, right?
But
So
you see, but even then, Greg, the part of the thinking there that's flawed is that once I load the player list to Draft Fanatics, the order no longer matters.
Well, that's true. The order no longer matters.
Because it's when you draft them is when they're moving up or down.
Yep.
So I can reset that. So my plan is to have a player list and I'll reset it like January 1st. But once January 1st comes, I want the boards to be moving up and that like
up and down. Up and down for usage. Usage determines the board going up and down. But I'm thinking of it from this aspect, Jim. Somebody like Ben who doesn't know all the players right now, at least when the Senior Bowl one comes out, readjust it so that Jim could see the top 300, whatever, right?
So here's my solution to that, right? Because this was even in before I even had a simulator. Here was my plan.
Yeah.
My plan was to have the podcast community promote the website. Well, that didn't work. It didn't work, right? All the publicity of the site came from me pushing it out, right?
Yeah.
So what I need in order to inform people of the players is a series of podcasts that talk about the players.
Yeah.
And like it does, like because the exact ranking, like if you're looking at, let's say, a 150 person big board, if a player is 40 on mine and 60 on yours, that's not really that big of a difference.
Not a huge difference. It's a difference, but not
It's a
huge.
difference, but it's not huge. So we're looking more for 40 to 80 or 40 to 120.
Yep.
Right. Meaning that
Big variance. You're looking for
right,
the big
because
variance.
what you're dealing with is he draftable or not draftable?
Yep.
Right. And then you have to figure out, well, if he is draftable, what's the right value for him to be drafted at?
Yep.
Right.
I'm just looking at the point of, so that people see the names, because that's the thing that most people get stuck at is they don't know who these guys are.
Right. So I want to create a podcast series where analysts come in and give, like, this player's a nose tackle, this player's an edge, this player's a tweener. But they don't necessarily need to say that he's 30th or 80th.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
They
So
need to
if
be
you-
able to say,
okay,
this
so
is
what
who
you-
he is, this is how he will succeed.
What you want to do is what the stock exchange, what Trevor and Connor do before the season, during the season,
Yep.
postseason, and then through the process is they'll do those various by position, and they'll do a top 10, sometimes 15. You want to do that?
Yep.
Like 15.
And then, like, for example, like if I get let's say I get your list of 150.
Yeah.
Right. And you can give me that list. There'll be a weekend where I'll go and I will say, I will take Greg's player list and I'm going to do a 3-round mock, but I'm limiting myself to only picking players that are on Greg's top 100 list.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I got you.
say, that's what this looks like.
Yep.
And then the next week I could get Brock's list.
Yep.
And say I'm using his. And then that's where, again, the simulator is going to have, if somebody just does a random simulation, they're getting a little bit of yours and a little bit of Brock's.
Yep.
It's not a pure board. It's a salad bowl of board.
It's a consensus. It's a consensus at that
I wouldn't say it's consensus. I'll say it's a salad bowl.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. But you're building towards consensus.
Right.
That's
right.
what you're doing. You're building towards it. So yeah, cool. I can do that. I got no problem doing that. If you guys want to hook up and get them going, things like that, we can do those sort of podcasts. That's no problem.
Yep. So, but I definitely, like, I have an early morning because I have to drive 4 hours to get to my son's track meet tomorrow. So
enjoy, my friend.
I will. So I appreciate all of you coming on. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. So I love having discussions like this. I don't need to dominate discussions when I like host something. I love just hearing all you guys go back and forth. So I truly appreciate all of you.
Yeah. Ditto.
Thank
I
you.
love it too.
Pete and Ben, pleasure meeting both of you guys. As you can tell, I take my biases, even those Michigan players, I take my bias out of it. So I'm not the evil, normal Cowboys Nation person that you guys may have out there in the Bills Mafia universe thought mindset. I'm not that guy.
Thank
was
you.
a good way to spend the draft eve.
Yes.
Yes. Tomorrow, how many trades you guys think?
I think my over under was 3.5.
I would say over under 2.5. I think.
Yeah, I was leaning 2.5, but yeah, we're right in round 3.
It's a hard one. Like I think we kind of touched on it. It's probably been said to death for like a month, but you would love to trade back because I think thinking about the Bills, I could certainly get somebody at 41 that I could have liked at 27.
Yeah,
not my top choice, but somebody that would be okay.
If
That's one of
the sweet spot to me. If Buffalo is 5 day 2 picks, to me that's the sweet spot.
Yeah,
everybody's thinking that.
But that's why I also talked about that one ideal mock that I did where they moved back 31 in the first round. They moved 2 spots back down in the second. They picked up a couple of extra picks.
Yep.
And the Cowboys walk away with a pretty good draft haul out of that. Just compared to what just the 7 picks would be.
Well,
just having those 2 other guys.
And Greg, you were saying, I think, and it's been very well known that the Rams want to trade down because they only have 40 players on their roster right now. They don't
Well,
even have a backup quarterback.
Yeah, the Rams want everything, right?
So
They want everything, and they
Everything
need
cheap.
every UDFA is going to the Rams.
the Rams are gonna have a huge bill for UDFA contacts. I mean, they are going to sign anybody and everybody to fill up their 90 guys.
Yep.
It's going to be wild.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Very
See you, everybody.
cool. Thank
right.
you.
Thanks,
Peace.
guys.
Take care, everybody.